Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Port Phillip City Council. The City of Port Phillip respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners of this land, the people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. We acknowledge and uphold their continuing relationship to this land. This meeting is conducted in a hybrid style and is streamed via Council's webcast page and Facebook Live. Streams and recording of Council meetings are copyrighted and cannot be altered, reproduced, or republished without the permission of Council. If we experience any technical difficulties this evening, we will adjourn the meeting for a short time to resolve the issue. I remind attendees that any member of the public addressing Council must extend due courtesy and respect to the Council and the processes under which we operate, and must take direction from the Chair whenever called on to do so. Speakers must remain respectful, and statements or questions must not be defamatory, offensive, or objectionable, aimed at embarrassing a councillor or a member of Council staff, or relate to a matter outside the powers of the Council. First item tonight is request to attend by electronic means. CEO, do we have any requests from councillors to participate in tonight's meeting by electronic means?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, we've received requests from Councillors Niagui and Councillor Pearl.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, I now seek a mover for the motion that Council approves the request to attend the meeting electronically received from Councillor Niagui and Councillor Pearl. Do I have a mover? Councillor Baxter. And a seconder? Councillor Bond. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Next is apologies. Councillors, do we have any apologies? That's 9, so no. Next, we have the minutes. The minutes of the council meeting held on the 15th of February 2023 have been circulated. Are there any questions of the minutes? I see none. If not, can I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Bond, and seconded Councillor Martin. Thank you. And I'll put that to a vote. All in favour? That's carried. Okay, next is conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at tonight's meeting? Councillor Clark.
Yes, I have a conflict of interest on item 7.9, the M9 waste and recycling business case, so I'll step out at that point in time at the confidential part of the meeting.
Thank you. Any other ones? No. Next, we're going to move on to public question time and submissions. We have a lot of speakers tonight. We're going to limit it to 2 minutes each. So when I call up your name, we'll have you please say there'll be a chair moved in front of the microphone, and the microphone may or may not be on. It's on. It's permanently on. So you don't need to touch any buttons. But when you sit down, please say your name and your suburb for the record, and then your 2 minutes will start. Then if it's just a submission, we'll say thank you. If it's a question, we'll refer it to an officer or have the answer provided. If we don't have the answer tonight, we'll take it on notice. So let's get started. I call upon Ryan Smith submitting a question to Council. Ryan Smith, are you here? Oh, hello. His name, suburb, and go for it. Can you hear him? Is there a red light?
There we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. How's that?
Great, thank you.
Terrific. Firstly, I'd like to say thanks for the Council for running the pilot program that's currently underway at St Kilda Beach. It's an excellent program that is involving a motorised wheelchair access onto St Kilda Beach, which is a fantastic initiative and actually something that I haven't seen in any other LGA across Victoria, actually not across Australia. So kudos to COP for that initiative. I did have a few questions with regards to access in our lovely LGA. I had 2 complaints that I lodged last year, one regarding digital accessibility and the other regarding physical accessibility. Neither of those seemed to have been received, or at least I didn't receive any recognition that they had been received. one regarding parking and the other the digital accessibility of the new resident portal. Is Council aware that the number of residents and visitors with disabilities and access needs, I should probably say, is rising every year, and it doesn't seem to be a huge priority for Council, at least at that level that I've experienced in the following more recent months. So I guess my question comes down to the Accessible Action Plan, which is due to replace the Access and Inclusion Plan, which I understand has been delayed by around 18 months. So I guess it all boils down to the question of, is Council taking accessibility seriously, and are we due to receive the Accessible Action Plan as planned halfway through this year?
Thank you. I refer to Karina. There you are. Katrina, thank you.
Through you, Mayor, Council officers have been working on the new Accessibility Action Plan, which will replace the current Access and Inclusion Plan, whilst we're continuing to implement that one, of course. That has been drafted, and Council will be considering that at a briefing this month, and we expect to have that in the chamber subject to Council's decision or advice in April this year. The recommendation would be to put that out for community comments so that our community is able to provide comment on that plan. I can say that the work both of the current plan and the proposed future plan both does include accessible content on our website through ensuring our communications are accessible, and certainly does look to a city that has accessible transport options, including parking and some particular actions relating to those matters.
Thank you. CEO, please.
Through you, Mayor, thank you, Ryan, for coming in tonight and raising those concerns with us. Council is committed to doing better in this space, and there's a recognition that we do need to do better. I will personally follow up on the complaints you've had around accessible parking and digital accessibility on the website as well, and we'll make sure that you get a response, and we'll make sure you're also aware and able to participate in the consultation on the accessibility access plan.
Terrific. In regards to the physical access and the parking, it's relatively simple fix in that space. Not to get into too much detail, but I was visiting the shorefront, and the space between two disabled car parks, which is shared space where the yellow lines are, somebody had parked there, and not only once, twice, in two instances in that area. And that's actually a relatively easy and simple fix if the council, or at least if that designated accessible parking bay was designed and implemented to Australian standards 1428, then a bollard would have been placed, and so somebody would not have been able to park there.
Thank you, Ryan. Yep,
Sure.
we will take that one as well.
Terrific.
Thank you very much. I call upon Eliza Webb, submitting a question to Council. Yeah, I think, yes.
Hi, it's Elisa Webb. I'm a Balaclava resident and ratepayer, and it's okay, school council president of St Kilda Park Primary School. My question relates to the public toilet that's being proposed for Fitzroy Street in the park, on Parks Victoria land. I'd just like an update on the situation regarding the lack of water and sewerage available to the proposed facility. Specifically the requirement to dig 8 metres under Fitzroy Street to access the water and the sewage. So I'd like to know whether the necessary permits have been received from Vic Roads, Yarra Trams, Melbourne Water, and how much this part of the project is going to cost, and if there's a start date and a timeline for how long the disruption to Fitzroy Street will last for that bit of the project.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Anthony Sevikov, thank you, to respond to that.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Council's engaged a design consultant to work on the connections for the sewer and water. It's estimated that the connection will cost approximately $230,000. That's in line with the guidance that officers gave at the previous council meeting where the matter was considered. The timing, we're estimating at this stage, the works are not likely to commence for a few months. That's because there's some design, there's planning, and there's a permit process to go through. As we get closer to the scheduled timing of the works, we plan to give some further guidance regarding how long the works are likely to go for. At this stage, I don't have an update on that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I call upon Christina Manonian. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. Say it properly for us. Submitting a question to you, Council.
Hi, my name's Christina Manonian. I am a resident of St Kilda Park, and I'm on the council at St Kilda Park Primary as well. Have kids there, and yeah, a local ratepayer. My question is similar to Elisa's, so part of it has already been answered in terms of the cost estimate and status. So that's really been answered. Is there any other additional infrastructure work? In terms of, I know what the cost overrun limit was, but I guess then since I'm here, I'll ask another related question, and that is there consideration of moving the location a bit further from the entrance to the school, as has been put forward as, our preferred option? And I saw on the plans there were the sewerage marks there were like 4 of them put out, but I'm not sure if there's other sewerage that would be easier to access, like closer to Lakeside Drive. It would be further away from the school. It would be more accessible from a crosswalk standpoint. So just wanted some confirmation on that. And I guess another just comment is just that a lot of the assessment work and information was done pre-COVID, and now Fitzroy Street has many more challenges. So I think, it's not that it's a public toilet next to a school, it's that it's on Fitzroy Street next to a school. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anthony Sevikoff, can you answer that again? Sorry, Lachlan Johnson?
Through you, Mayor, I might respond to Christina's questions. When Council considered the petition in June last year, there was a number of different sewer discharge locations considered. There were 4 at that time. Some of them were further away on Parks Victoria land, and it was deemed that the sewer, whilst on the opposite side of Fitzroy Street, meant that works needed to be undertaken to get under Fitzroy Street and under the tram lines, that was the optimal place for sewage discharge for the public toilet. With regards to the location, Council CEO has been working closely with Parks Victoria to see if the location of the public toilet has been able to be pushed down towards Lakeside Drive, and Parks Victoria have been able to accommodate a change, so the public toilet is now further towards Lakeside Drive. With regards to the changes in activity on Fitzroy Street since the project was originally undertaken in late last year, a SEPTED report, so looking at the environmental design elements of the project, was made available for public. That was updated right at the end of last year, so that reflects the period of time post the pandemic as well.
Can I just really quickly, how much further up is the new location?
Through you, Mayor, you're testing my memory. Council CEO might recall the distance, or if not, we can provide that in the minutes to the meeting.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, it's around 20 metres. We'll confirm it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I call upon, yes, Christina? Sorry, Councillor Serikoff?
Thank you, Mayor. Christine, what kind of, does that distance satisfy you of just being moved down that extra 20 metres?
I don't even know what 20 metres really, it doesn't sound very far. So I guess the further away, the better.
I'd say it's like 7 or 8.
I would have thought something near the other intersection would be better from an accessibility standpoint because there's no crosswalk at that location.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next we're going to move. I call upon Neil Scott submitting a question to Council, virtual. Neil, you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Neil. Name
Neil
and suburb.
Neil Scott, and I'm a resident of St Kilda and also the principal of the St Kilda Park Primary School.
Yep, go ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. The question also relates to the public toilets, and I do welcome the news that is moving slightly further away from the school. I just wanted to ask a question around child safe standards. I'm pleased to see that the City of Port Phillip Council is a committed child safe organisation, but we do want to draw attention to the Standard 9 of the new child safe standard, which requires that all physical and online environments promote safety and well-being, whilst minimising the opportunity for young people to be harmed. Based on the ongoing unsafe condition of other public toilets in the City of Port Phillip, I'd just like to know how your commitment to this standard is demonstrated by the decision to proceed with the construction of the toilets in close proximity to the school, and also just how Council would respond if an incident does happen involving the toilets and a student, knowing that Council's had the ability to minimise the opportunity for young people to be harmed, but chose to proceed with this project.
Thank you. Lachlan Johnson.
Through you, Mayor, and thank you, Neil, for your questions. Council does take its child safe responsibilities very seriously. In response to the 11 new child safe standards, replacing the 7 existing standards, Council has conducted a review of its child safe framework, comprising policies, practices and procedures, to identify any gaps and areas for improvement that have been planned and are currently prioritising what we need to do, working in partnership with our internal auditors and with support from the Commission for Children and Young People, who are prioritising providing guidance and support for organisations to ensure full compliance with the new standards. With regards to the specific project, as I outlined in the previous answer, Council's undertaken extensive due diligence. That's also included the engagement of a specialist consultant to provide a SEPTED report with recommendations about how the public toilet can be implemented safely, and those recommendations from that expert report have been incorporated into the design. As per Council's decision in the June meeting last year, Council's committed to working with local stakeholders, including the school, on ensuring that the operation of the public toilet is effective. So that includes increasing cleaning at the public toilet to a higher frequency and including the location where the public toilet is proposed to be included as part of Council's local laws and amenities patrols. Obviously, any issues that arose in relation to the public toilet would be dealt with the due care and seriousness that they would require, but Council is confident that with the approach taken at the moment that risks have been mitigated to the greatest extent they can be.
Thank you. I call upon John Brooksmith submitting a question to Council. Hi, John.
Hi.
Name, suburb and 2 minutes, please.
My name is John Brooksmith. I live in Middle Park. My question is about beach occupancy of the Sandbar restaurant at Beaconsfield Parade in Albert Park. I asked a question on the legality of the beach occupancy of the Sandbar Cafe in Beaconsfield Parade at the meeting on the 15th of February this year. The council responded they were not clear on the legality of the position, but they will get back to me. To date, I've had no response. My question stated that some 50 square metres have been occupied by this establishment, but I must apologise because that should have read 500 metres, some 10 times as much. Previously, I had been advised to the Council by email on the 19th of December that the Sandbar had been permitted to fence in some 500 square metres of beach at this location, and the permit was valid until the 30th of April this year. This authorisation, I was advised, was made under the DELWP's coastal consent process. The DEP, whatever, is the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. and their website advised this authorisation does not override the planning scheme, and as such cannot override the state government's determination of VCAT. I attach appendix number 1. I understand the permits for the additional beach seating and space requires liquor licensing considerations. I'm not aware of any advertised application for the variation of the liquor licence at this venue. So I'm alleging we have a beach occupancy which breaches the determination by the state government in VCAT. I'm also alleging we have a serving of alcohol on the beach in an area which is outside any liquor licensing permit areas. The Council was advised in the Statutory Planning Committee meeting dated the 12th of February 2001 that a permit to occupy Beaconsfield Parade footpath outside this venue was wrongly issued, as Council has no authority to issue a permit on Crown lands outside the venue of the Beaconsfield Parade. See attached Appendix 2. Council subsequently authorised the building to have a serving window installed on the wall facing Beaconsfield Parade. Food and drinks are served by patrons on Beaconsfield Parade through this window, and Beaconsfield Parade is fenced off outside the entrance to this cafe. I raised this matter of continual serving of patrons on the Beaconsfield Parade footpath and sandwich boards there in December, and I was advised the Council will follow up.
John, that was your 2 minutes, so if you can come to the question, please. Okay,
my question is, will the Council explain how the Council allegedly makes so many errors at law regarding this redress? And will the Council ensure that the sand is given back to the beachgoers?
I refer to Brian T, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Yes, thank you. And Mr. Brooksmith did attend the last council meeting, and I did indicate that we had received correspondence from Mr. Brooksmith, and I did indicate that we would respond to him. I had hoped we'd responded by now, and we have not, and I do apologise for that. And I will make sure that response is done as quickly as possible. At the previous meeting, I did indicate that the sandbar does have coastal consent from the relevant state department. Tonight, Mr. Brooksmith has asked about the relationship between that approval and the planning scheme, and Mr. Brooksmith referred to the web page, which correctly asserts, of course, that the planning scheme cannot. The planning scheme effectively overrides any coastal consent. I do also understand that the sandbar does have effective approval from the planning scheme, or in effect it is consistent with the planning scheme, and that the use of the beach is exempt from planning permits pursuant to clause 52.18, which is the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic and recovery exemptions of the Port Phillip planning scheme, which was gazetted on the 28th of October 2022. The use of the benefit of that exemption would override any current planning permit, and the exemption provided by this clause will expire on the 12th of October 2022, being 12 months from the period when the pandemic declaration under the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008 in relation to the coronavirus COVID-19 came into effect. We are still investigating the other matters that Mr. Brooksmith has raised, but as I've indicated, we will respond to him, and we will do so soon.
Thank you. I now call upon Charlotte Frajman submitting a question to Council. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi.
Name, suburb, and you have 2 minutes, please.
Yep. So Charlotte Froman in St Kilda. Yep. Okay, so some of you know my husband and I, we've operated a community pharmacy for 32 years in Fitzroy Street, St Kilda. And it's been a very tough 12 months. Just random statistics, 27 calls to police just from my phone in January, 70 in February. That doesn't count my husband's nor the landline calls. Anyway, my question relates to the mushroom stalls that are the public seating on our corner, Jackson and Fitzroy. It seems to be a magnet for less favourable people in our community, let's say. Well, they're not even part of our community. That's the sad point. You know, they just come in. And if you liaise with the cleaning team, who are just amazing, stellar, what they have to pick up and do and deal with on a daily basis, no human should have to do. It was identified on the corner of Fitzroy and Grey that the setup of the public bins presented a problem because it allowed easy barricades of the people who chose to sleep homeless and everything. And once it was identified, it was removed really quickly. We've been begging for 18 months for these stools to be removed. We're next door to a public building that has cafes and seating and everything like that. I'm proposing we could replace it with something really useful, even make it an art competition. We have so many artists and creative people in St Kilda. Let's make a bike rack. There's not a lot of bike racks in Fitzroy Street. A lot of people ride bikes.
Thank you. That was 2 minutes. Do you have a question? Or
I just want council to please consider urgently removing those stools. They are a problem.
Okay. CEO?
Through you, Mayor, I know that there are mixed views around the stools. There are some people who would like to see them removed, and there's some people who don't want to see them removed. I'm happy to report back to councillors on the options, if you would like me to.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Bond has a question for you.
You've got a building that's sat empty on Fitzroy Street for 5 years. When do you intend to let that out?
Excuse me? Which
the building, the one that's got the signs up at the front about the chamber, the hyperbaric chamber or something. The old Solly Luke.
That we cooperated as a good community citizen and participated in
I'm going to
Fitzroy Street, and you're accusing us.
I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking a question of when do you intend to let it out?
We participated in Renew Fitzroy Street on more than one occasion at our own expense. Thank you very much. Your council took 20 months for the planning approval to come through.
Charlotte, thank you for coming down tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, I call upon Alex Macon submitting a question to council.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I note that council is currently reviewing its off-leash guidelines for dogs. Just wanted to see if council has existing usage counts of dogs and their usage around existing off-leash areas. If that count has been conducted, when has it been conducted and will it be made available? If not, will counts be undertaken to help inform the process around off-leash guidelines, and will it be available to help the community plan submissions accordingly?
Thanks, Alex. I'll refer to Alison Kenwood, please.
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for your question. We don't currently have counts available. We are currently just started the count process. We're doing random counts right across the municipality at the moment. We're looking at our fenced dog areas, we're looking at our recreation open space and our beach area, and that data will be included in the off-leash guidelines, and we will make it available if community are interested in looking at the use of the areas that we have data on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. I call upon Helen Watt speaking to item 7.1, Petition, Communal Food Organics Hub, Bay Street, Port Melbourne. Are you here today, Helen? Oh, hi, Helen. Welcome. Oh, might need to
Oh, no.
get a towel. It's okay. You're all right, Helen. You're fine. When you're ready, it's okay.
Puppy. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's a bit stressful for him. Sorry.
You're all right. We can sort that out.
Sorry.
It's not a problem.
He's just a puppy in training. He's only 6 months.
Not a
I
problem.
think it was a bit stressful for him. My name is Helen Watts. I'm a resident of Bay Street in Port Melbourne. Thank you for hearing me. We have submitted a small petition to the council regarding the FOGO bins. In the section of Bay Street that I live, between Ingalls and Boundary Street, we have very small cottages with a heritage overlay, and these cottages have very small street fronts, and we have no garages and no back gardens. FOGO bins, when we first heard about them through diversity and the council talking about them, we thought, oh, they'll be great, and we assumed they were going to be a communal facility. Unfortunately, come January, every little household received one of these large 120-litre bins, which, when you only have a very tiny front porch, some don't even have that, to try and store these bins under your bedroom window was not a really nice thought to do. So we all got together and had a little meeting and thought, well, we really don't need these, and there's only 1 or 2 residents in each household. A communal bin would be much better. So we've asked the council to provide us with a communal bin in an area that we already have as a rubbish bin in a little park in our cul-de-sac, and all the residents were quite happy to use the little 7-litre bins that the council have kindly provided and just empty them every couple of days into the big bin. So I'd just like to come and just talk to you all and say we really would like this initiative, and we think the excessive use of all these great big bins in these very small cottages is very ugly, but also such a waste of plastic and everybody's time.
Thank you, Helen. We will speak to your item first, so if you stick around, you'll hear it early.
Thank you.
I call upon Jenny Roper, speaking to item 10.1, Proposed Local Law 2023. Forget about my phone. Hi, Jenny. When you're ready, I think we'll sort that. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, CEO, councillors and Mayor. My name is Jenny Roper and I live in St Kilda. I have been campaigning for the last 10 years for a safer amenity in St Kilda for the whole community. By allowing people to illegally camp on the footpath on Fitzroy Street has led to 2 personal assaults, once with my children. In June 2020, The Age wrote an article saying that St Kilda is not safe for women. I have been to placemaking meetings, community safety forums, written letters, emails and made phone calls. I wish to ask the City of Port Phillip a question. What specifically have you asked the police in the name of support and resources for the City of Port Phillip? When did you request this and what was the response from the police? The City of Port Phillip cannot expect the local community to walk down the street where people behave in a manner which interferes with another person on council land. City of Port Phillip have tabled a document saying there are currently only 5 people that are homeless on Fitzroy, Carlisle and Ackland Street. These people need a home. No one should be camping on our streets. I totally understand that if it hasn't happened to you, your friend or a family member, it doesn't happen. But it is happening. We live and breathe this every day. In your briefing, Proposed Local Laws, you have recognised that there is an issue. I am asking the Council to include option 2 in the Local Laws Review consultation for 4.51, Behaviour on Council Land, 4.57, Move on Powers, and 4.61, Camping on Council Land. We can't change the state laws, but we can change and improve the City of Port Phillip local laws, and you can give the community the opportunity to have these 3 by option 2s included in the community consultation. As Catherine Copsey mentioned in Parliament last week, the Park Tower residents are feeling unsafe, neglected and ignored by the State Department. Unfortunately, this is how many of us residents of St Kilda are feeling about the City of Port Phillip Council.
Thank you, Jenny. That's the 2 minutes.
I'm asking the councillors to start focusing on the residents they are representing and for you to base this on community requirements and not your personal preference. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. Oh, sorry, Christina. Councillor Sirkov has a question for you.
Yes, thank you, Jenny Roper. I'm just wondering, since you've been looking at it for the past 10 years, in what way do you think that the current local laws are failing you?
Are failing us? No.
I'm sorry, Jenny. Just because we have so many people speaking to it tonight, we can't enter into this back and forth about questions. So I think that Jenny's given her submission there, and if you'd like to email Councillor Sirkov, if you think that'd be helpful, or something like that.
Yeah, if you can email it to me and I'll answer it. Thank you.
Thank you. I call upon James Radald, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law 2023.
Thanks for the opportunity. My name's James and I'm from South Melbourne. I'm asking Council to give serious consideration to the inclusion of the amendments relating to the antisocial behaviour and option 2 within the local bylaw updates. As you can appreciate, these matters may cause irreversible harm to members of the community. Each day I step out of my apartment or talk to my neighbours and I don't know what's next. Is my house burgled? Is my car broken into? Has there been another home invasion? Our apartment complex lives in fear. The police response time is almost unthinkable. For the last 24 years, I've worked in the protective security, crime reduction and secure custodial environments. I've never felt more uncomfortable than walking the streets of South Melbourne. My street and neighbouring properties see offences almost daily. Fights, property damage, drug dealing, home invasions, drug overdoses, mental health episodes. I don't agree that with some of the reasons provided by council around blaming police or saying it's a police matter. It's a community matter. It's everybody's problem. We know the police have calls for services increases. We know that they're reduced in numbers. We know that they are resource constrained. Council have suggested they've provided CCTV to Fitzroy Street. That's not helping South Melbourne. It's not the bigger picture. Standalone CCTV is not a proven effective solution in any SEPTED or any crime reduction strategies. You call out the training of council officers, and council admit that they fear for the safety of their own workers who should be implementing and enforcing some of these laws. So if we can't rely on the council to do this and we can't rely on the police, then who is to help the community? And I guess the other question for me is, what is council doing to learn from other councils, i.e. City of Melbourne, who have a great Safe City program? They've recently won awards. There are councils around Australia who have won crime reduction strategy awards for effective use of their bylaw officers, the effective bylaws enforced by their bylaw officers, and having the police on board to enforce those bylaw powers.
Thank you, James. That was 2 minutes. Do we have an officer that I can refer to? Do you want to take it? See you.
Through you, Mayor. Look, there's a range of issues that are addressed there. I think officers, councillors are all deeply committed to improving community safety. I know my officers on the street are doing a good job every day in enforcing the local laws as they currently stand. I also know, I understand the community's desire for more to happen in this space. But as you can see on balance with our analysis from the officer's perspective, the problems that you're trying to solve won't be solved we don't believe will be solved through this local law. And in fact, if you make some of the changes that are being contemplated, that it could have negative impacts around our ability to get resourcing and support from the police to enforce the law. So I understand where people are coming from. I understand and I share your desire to want to do better. I'm committed to continuing to work with Australians and the community to look at what we can do as a council. The local law is one avenue. We don't think it's going to have the impact that people are thinking it might have. There was a question previously around what are we doing in terms of working with the police, and the comment even then was around, you know, the police working with us to enforce the local law. Well, that's a challenge with the current local law, let alone adding more to it. So the biggest request that we have of the police, we work really closely with them, we work really well with them, and we don't want to point the finger. This is a shared problem, and we take ownership of being part of the solution to that. We do a range of things beyond CCTV. The way that we work with our local laws, our rapid response crew, the way we work with affordable housing and other organisations and try to provide connections to people who need support. We work with a range of other support agencies, so we're there every day trying to help. We are looking at other things that we can do around placemaking. They're not always effective, and how we can make things more activated to make these places more attractive. So we are always looking at things that we can do. The investment that we did in the Pride Centre, the work that we did in trying to facilitate the development with the block at the old Gatwick as well. Like, we have been working in a range of different ways to try and change some of the situations that you are seeing on the street. We are committed to continuing to do that. Fundamentally though, we believe as officers that some of the things that are being considered, while we can see they might be attractive on the surface, have problems in implementation and won't lead to the outcomes that you're seeking. What are we doing with the police? I've met with them on several occasions. They've been great in working with us on the foreshore around summer management. We've got a really good relationship. They are being more responsive when we do have call-outs ourselves, and we're sort of saying we've got situations going on, our officers need support. The police are helping us with that. But with one area that we would like to see, and our probably biggest call, is for them to be able to have the resourcing to attend our joint patrols on more frequent occasions, which is very infrequent at the moment, to help us set the tone on the street and to deal with some of the problem behaviours that we see on a daily basis. The other part that we're asking them is to look at enforcement of some of our existing local laws on a more frequent basis, including things like on Ackland Street, public drinking. So they're two of the priority requests that this council and I as CEO have had of the police. We have had some decent response in terms of commitment, in terms of looking at these things and wanting to work with us, and I hold out hope that we will see that change in the coming months, but it's something I need to continuously work on.
If I could just respond quickly. If we're trying to do everything, then why are we taking options off the table? We should be trying to fill our options. And secondly, this is not a new problem. All other councils, many other councils around Australia have dealt with this problem successfully, and we don't seem to be doing that here. But thank you.
James, I'm happy to meet with you another time if you can give me your details after the meeting or pass them on. That'd be fine.
Thank you.
I call upon Jeffrey Conahan, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law 2023. Now, I have to be pretty fair that we're going to stick to the 2 minutes and not have back and forth debate, because we have a lot of people to get through, and it's only fair that we're not here all night. Thank you for coming. Jeffrey, when you're ready, name, suburb in 2 minutes, please.
Jeffrey Conahan, Jackson Street, St Kilda, which for councillors runs behind the Pride Centre and Jackson Street car park, known as a hotspot. I'm speaking to this subject. There's been considerable effort made and money spent to recover Fitzroy and Ackland Street from the effects of antisocial behaviour, to restore resident amenity and to stimulate economic activity. Placemaking is one recent initiative. Regardless of these efforts, the street remains a source of complaints from a wide range of residents. All of the negatives flagged in the briefing paper, including harassment of locals, which includes me, still occur. Street camping, drug dealing and drug use occur daily. My local laneway is known colloquially as Piss Alley. I request Council to include opportunities for innovation for the forthcoming consultations. I request that the option of no change is not considered. The current responses have not delivered a pleasant neighbourhood. Please don't keep doing what clearly has not worked. Council does have an excellent model of successful neighbourhood recovery. The Graham Barclay Street Precinct exclusion zone was introduced to stop curb crawlers harassing and assaulting women and to stop curb crawlers generally making a nuisance of themselves. I have not seen curb crawlers on Grey Street for many years. The initiative worked. In summary, please support something different. Do not consider no change as an option, and look at the outcome of the exclusion zone initiative. I'll stop here, and of course I'm happy to expand on these matters on request.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Sorry, I've got some loud alarms here. I call upon Nick Geisen, speaking to item 10.1, Proposed Local Law 2023. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Nick Geisen. I live on Greaves Street in St Kilda.
Thank you.
I'm a member of the Owners Corporation for a large complex of apartments over on Greaves Street. We have over 200 residents there. So I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of the Owners Corporation, as well as all residents of that complex and local members of the community who have shared their concerns with us. I'd like to speak tonight about crime and community safety, specifically on Greaves Street and those surrounding areas. Before I do that, I would like to acknowledge that St Kilda is home to a large number of disadvantaged people, and that this is in no way meant to target or alienate those people in any way. This is about crime and community safety. In response to residents expressing their concerns with us in the strongest terms, on Monday night we created a petition, Monday of this week, which has already gathered over 300 signatures in less than 48 hours. And that's not officially on the record tonight, but I'd like you to consider the essence of the petition all the same. The petition reads, St Kilda Police, action against crime on Greaves Street and surrounds. The community surrounding Greaves Street, St Kilda is currently subjected to daily incidents of drug abuse, theft and violent crime. Without a police presence in the area, the problem is only getting worse. Offenders have now become so brazen that these crimes are now happening 24/7 and in broad daylight. Our community deserves to feel safe in their own homes, and our children shouldn't have to grow up witnessing crime on a daily basis. We are asking St Kilda Police, together with the City of Port Phillip, to work with us to make our community safer for everyone. What we want: increased police patrols of Greaves Street and surrounding areas, better police accountability for responding to 000 calls for the area, taking action against repeat offenders, and a trial of the mobile surveillance unit being positioned on Greaves Street, which the council played a part in organising. Now, just to close, I'm well aware that Greaves Street has a certain reputation and that certain activities have been known to occur on Greaves Street in particular for several decades. But what I'm talking to you about tonight is not about those activities in particular. It's about crime and community safety. There's people dealing drugs and injecting drugs in the middle of thoroughfares, and then leaving those needles on the ground in thoroughfares for people to step on, use needles. It's about the residents who are assaulted when they ask those people to move on or are simply trying to access their front door in our complex. And it's about the daily break-ins and theft at all hours of the day and night.
Thank you, Nick.
So I just have a quick question to close. There's a number of, it's a big grey area across police and council, I do understand that, but is the council willing to proactively work together with the community of Greaves Street to try and have a dialogue on how we could proactively work together on a solution towards this issue?
CEO?
Through you, Mayor, absolutely.
Nice and quick. Yeah. And if you have gotten the advice on how to submit the petition if you're choosing to do so?
Yes, I am.
You're good? All right. Thank you for coming down, Nick.
Thank you.
I call upon Elizabeth Josephine Muratov, speaking to item 10.1, Proposed Local Laws 2023. Hi, Elizabeth.
Good evening.
Name, suburb, and 2 minutes, please.
Right, my name's Liz, St Kilda. I've been a resident in St Kilda for about 45 years, and I would like the councillors to vote in favour of strengthening local laws to reduce antisocial behaviour on our streets. Council officers have drafted 2 options in relation to the following. It's behaviour on council land, move on powers, and camping on council land. My objective for the council meeting is to influence the majority of the councillors to vote in favour of including option 2. Sorry, I'm really nervous. This is a once-in-10-year opportunity to change the local laws, which are obviously not working. Current laws are not working because of the antisocial behaviour on our streets. Last week, a girlfriend of mine came down from Oakley and she had coffee with her mother. She said she'd never come back again. There were punches in Ackland Street, the drugs, people swearing, screaming. It was just, the antisocial behaviour was disgraceful. The drug use is absolutely shocking. The discarding of syringes and other paraphernalia is awful. What goes on in front of the pharmacy in Ackland Street, people, when they go in to purchase products in the pharmacy, they just walk out, and their employees, they resign weekly because they cannot cope with the antisocial behaviour that's going on in the pharmacy. It's also very important to support the community because our community is breaking down. We do not have a community anymore. Please vote in favour of including the proposal for your new laws. And do consider us and not what you think is right.
Thank you very much. I call upon Joe McDonald, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law. And I know, Joe, we have a submission from you. So
yes.
Do your best in your 2 minutes.
I'm not sure how long it'll go. Hopefully it'll be 2 minutes.
Good luck.
My name is Joe McDonald. I'm from St Kilda. I speak for the Junction Area Action Group. As councillors probably know, JAG was established to protect the amenity of the area in St Kilda East of St Kilda Road, bounded by St Kilda Road, Fitzroy and Princess Streets and Alma Road, but has extended its area to the area of interest to the area west of St Kilda Road, bounded by Fitzroy and Princess Street and Alma Road. JAG is concerned to improve the residential amenity of the area and accordingly is opposed to antisocial behaviour which has a negative impact on that amenity. Recently, residents have been impacted in Wellington Street and Octavia Street, including in the Pocket Park in Octavia Street, with impaired persons on drugs and alcohol or both being aggressive, and residents feel extremely unsafe in their places of residence. JAG is specifically concerned with the proposed local laws dealt with in paras 4.51, behaviour on council land, 4.57, move on powers, and 4.61, camping on council land. It strongly supports option 2 as outlined in the proposals in each case. At the very least, these options should be included in the proposed community consultations. JAG notes and agrees with the principle laid down in para 4.9 that council should regulate activities that may impact on urban character, local amenity and the fair enjoyment by or safety of others. JAG believes that in each case, option 2 best reflects the proper concern with residential amenity, particularly given that, for historical and other reasons, certain parts of St Kilda are currently exposed to significant antisocial behaviour. Para 4.51 sets out the current local law permitting a council officer to issue a notice to anyone guilty of a fairly narrow category of antisocial behaviour. Option 2 gives the officer the same powers but broadens the categories of behaviour in what JAG considers a desirable way. Specifically, JAG supports the extension to persons committing a nuisance, which is a well-recognised legal concept. Also, it seems incredible that the current local law does not extend to defecation or urination on council land other than in a public toilet, which currently occurs frequently, for example, Carlisle Street. This would be dealt with by option 2.
Sorry, that's 2 minutes. If you could wrap up 1 or 2 more sentences, that'd be great.
All right, final paragraph I'll jump to, but I do know that you've all got a copy.
Yeah, thank you.
In relation to para 4.61, camping on council land, JAG believes that option 2 is an appropriate response for the protection of residential and other amenity. The option specifically preserves the exception for people who are homeless or in need of secure accommodation. The present separate exception for people who are not homeless but who have complex needs, are in the need of additional assistance, is not appropriate to a law prohibiting camping. Such people should possibly be entitled to other types of social welfare, but why should they be permitted to camp on council land when they do have a home?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I call upon David from the Fitzroy Street Business Association, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law. Hi, David.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Welcome, Robbie. David Blakely, St Kilda. We like to see the addition of 4.51 about behaviour and 4.6 about camping to the forward to the public consultation. This is not about solving crime, it's about preventing criminal acts before they happen. On our street, the last couple of weeks, we've had an individual who in the past has punched randomly women in the face, children, and it's been dealt with by the law. He's housed outside our precinct. He's come back to sit on the street, re-torture the people, the victims before. Unfortunately, he's served his time, which is good for him. He hasn't. He sits in limbo land. We wait for him to re-offend. Local laws have engaged, police have tried to engage, but they haven't been able to move him on, although he has a residence elsewhere in St Kilda. I found out yesterday he's been charged again. So, Ackland Street's full of people in the same examples. I mean, they come down, they're at their house, they like to hang out. In the mornings, they're generally okay. As the day goes on, they'll be abusing people, they'll be threatening people. These are acts which hopefully with these bylaws could be preventable. It's, as a resident, I mean, I think I come as a resident first, I came as a resident here for 30 years. It disheartens me when I hear friends say they're leaving the area, they won't send their kids down to Ackland Street or Fitzroy Street. We've done market research around Fitzroy Street. One of the main inhibitors for women coming down the street is the feeling of safety. Now, these might not be criminal acts in themselves, but the behaviours, the camps on the street add to that feeling. It's an uphill battle trying to sell a street with these perceptions. Quickly, I think all options need to be looked at, including innovative outcomes where we find other places for people to gather, etc. Further engagement in state, be it policing, services, etc.
Thank you, David.
Thank
that
you.
was 2 minutes. Thank you. I call upon Daryl Craig, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed somebody. Sorry. I call upon Claire Meir. Sorry, Claire.
Hi, my name's Claire Mayer and I'm from St Kilda. I've lived on Grey Street for the past 2 years, although I've owned the property there for about 12 and travelled back frequently from living overseas, and I've seen a lot of change in the last couple of years. I've recently moved nearer to Ackland Street. I'd like to speak to the topic of antisocial behaviour, street camps, move-on laws specifically in St Kilda, but also for the wider city of Port Phillip. I was shocked by the increase of antisocial behaviour on Fitzroy and Ackland, which has escalated at an alarming rate while I was living overseas. I'm requesting that the Council address these with the review of nuisance camping and move-on laws. Whilst I recognise police are responsible for enforcing law, I feel Council is currently enabling people to drink in public, smoke bongs, fight, swear at passers-by, throw personal belongings at each other and in front of cars on Fitzroy Street, all of which we've witnessed regularly. It's not just unnerving, it's downright dangerous. As a family, we frequent Fitzroy and Ackland Street often, visiting our favourite restaurants, our local businesses. The feedback we receive from friends, family and visitors coming from interstate and overseas is that they will be staying clear. They are no longer family-friendly environments that they'd be willing to take their kids down. It's common knowledge police are not acting in the capacity that we expect as a community. We've experienced this ourselves by calling O on numerous occasions and them not showing up, even during critical incidents. However, allowing people to set up camp on sidewalks is not how vulnerable people should be living or congregating. They are prey to drug dealers and thugs who have recently called St Kilda their temporary home. The recent St Kilda Festival had signs all over the place stating that alcohol was not permitted in public places, and yet we seem to be ignoring it on a daily basis on Fitzroy and Ackland Street. It can't be one rule for part of the community and another for the rest. Surely changing move on laws will assist council and police from stopping this. However, many who are congregating in recent months are abusing passers-by and wreaking havoc with their vitriol. Sorry, can I just say one last thing?
Yep. One last line.
Look, I'm looking forward to a thorough community consultation. We know that this place is vibrant and eclectic and sometimes crazy, but we want to see some true progress be made, and we believe that this is the right way to go about it.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you.
All right, I call upon Daryl Craig, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daryl Proctor, resident of Grieve Street, Oasis Apartment Complex in St Kilda, wanting to consider option 2 of the agendas 4.51, 4.57 and 4.61. I'm also an OCC member of the complex. I'd like to address serious concerns that greatly affect the safety, health and wellbeing of myself and no debt residents of the St Kilda community. Nefarious and criminal activity is rife in St Kilda, with what seems no effective controls or deterrents for perpetrators and little consequences for their actions. I see the same faces continually reoffending. From experience, the vast majority of crime stems from substance abuse, drug addiction and street prostitution, which is, to my detriment, is now legal, with zero restrictions in place to protect residents. The criminal activity, especially in hotspots, is almost 24/7 and very prevalent at night between the hours of 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. The systems currently in place do very little and leaves residents with next to no rights. Some examples of what I've witnessed and around Grieve Street and the complex I reside in, which has council reserve and easements through the complex, which allows for right of passage of public. There's the drug taking with used uncapped needles and blood-soaked swabs left behind, sexual and lewd acts, which I've personally seen, which I do not want to see ever, is masturbation, fornication with used condoms left behind, urination, even defecation. Constant breaking and entering and theft of our complex. For example, for me personally, in the last 3 months, I've personally been assaulted, had my vehicle broken into and items stolen, and attempted theft of my motorbike. With the constant criminal activity, harassment and disturbance of the peace, it's at the point where I'm being forced from my own home, for my own safety and sanity. As a side note, I've been diagnosed with the onset of anxiety and depression, and it's also affecting my work. For criminals and their actions to force me to this point is infuriating. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for sharing with us. I'll call upon Janet Rosenberg, speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law.
Thank you, Mayor, councillors. I'm Janet Rosenberg and I'm the President of Ackland Street Business Association. I'm here representing the traders and I'm advocating for option 1 and 2 to be included in the public consultation in relation to 4.51 behaviour on council land and 4.6 camping on council land. The constant antisocial behaviour of drug and alcohol consumption, abuse and assault of passers-by is impacting the public amenity, particularly in Ackland Plaza. It is no longer available for the broader public to use, but dominated by a small group who have overrun the area to the detriment of traders and visitors alike. I have been trading in St Kilda for 32 years, and currently this situation is the worst it has ever been. Staff cannot eat lunch there as they are harassed. Many of my customers say they won't come anymore as it's not safe, and young families are afraid to bring their children. The plaza is occupied daily by people with trolleys full of clothes. They spread on the ground, they urinate in the plants and shop doorways. The area smells and is basically unhygienic. Many of these people are not homeless, and the antisocial behaviour escalates throughout the day and ends up requiring the police or ambulances almost daily. Shop vacancy rates are already high, and even though landlords are dropping the rent by as much as 40% on pre-COVID rates, the shops are not being rented. Traders do not want to risk leases in an area where this behaviour is happening. I understand that much work is already being done with police and other service providers on this multifaceted problem, but it is imperative that Council broaden their role in this area with bylaws that can deter problems before they escalate. Council can play an important role in giving the community back its public spaces that is currently being held to ransom by a minority. In relation to 4.51, behaviour on council land, option 2 should be included in the community consultation, as it specifies the actual problems the traders are facing. For example, 17.1e specifically mentions urinating. I have repeatedly told the people that are urinating in the plaza where the public toilet is, but I am ignored. I'll just be 1 second, sorry. If there was a fine because of a local law, this would be more of a deterrent and should not be too hard or dangerous to enforce for council officers. I believe both option 1 and 2 should be included for further community consultation to ensure all issues relating to these behaviours are canvassed to enable more appropriate local laws be set up for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Janet. Now, is Betty J here? I don't see. If not, I'm going to call upon Rocco Saras to speak to item 10.1, proposed local law.
Hi, my name's Rocco Soraci and I'm from St Kilda. I'm here today to ask for change on local laws regarding short-term accommodation in the City of Port Phillip and start the discussion on how we can better regulate and benefit the broader community. You may think that short-term accommodation is not a problem because there's no complaints lodged in your system. But there's actually no system to complain it. There's no actual complaint forms or anything on your website like other councils. We're not against responsible short-term stays accommodation, but Victorian laws are the weakest in Australia. It makes it very hard for body corporate or any individual to find antisocial behaviour in their own apartment blocks or homes that are purely rented out by pure party houses, bucks, hens nights, alcohol and drug-fuelled parties. We do call the police, but they don't turn up. It's important to note that this does not add to our local economy because these people use these party venues and bring their own alcohol, not putting money back to restaurants, bars in our area. Just imagine if you and your family member live next door to a venue that doesn't have anyone to answer to in terms of sound pollution, number of patrons, age limits, operating hours, safety. This is actually happening in our suburbs now. We need a bridge to gap between the state and local law. Other councils in Australia are creating their own local laws, even on their websites, and to make this, because the state law is not working for us. Under the state laws, body corporates do not have the power or limit to limit short-term rentals within their building. The recent reform and rules in VCAT looks great on paper, but it's very weak when it comes to the legal process. It takes years. Meanwhile, neighbours move out or move on. We've witnessed this. Only a few body corporates have the financial position to challenge these weak state laws. In an extensive review on VCAT cases, there's been not one case where VCAT has enforced a penalty, which is 1,100. Zero cases. The state government law is not working for us. We need the council to act and at least have something on their website and enforce some fines, unreasonable
Thanks,
tenants.
That was 2 minutes.
Let's move forward, everyone, and what can legally be done on a council level. Let's learn from Mornington Shire and other councils around the country on what's working and what's not working. And let's do a better model for us that works. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to move to 2 virtual. First, we have Tim Norman speaking to item 10.1, proposed local law. Do we have you, Tim?
Yes, you do.
Hi, Tim. Can you say your name, suburb, and you have 2 minutes to speak, please?
Yes, my name is Tim Norman in Port Melbourne. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors. I'm Secretary of the Beacon Cove Neighbourhood Association and co-founder of the subordinate group, Port Melbourne Road Safety Group, with membership around 500 and newsletter subscribers around 3,000, so we represent quite a number of people. I'm speaking to item 10.1 on the agenda. Clause 2.4 of that agenda item recommends local law changes and community consultation. Disturbingly, it does not include hoon behaviour. So I'm now formally requesting councillors to local laws addressing hoon behaviour be included in this process. 12 clauses of this agenda item provide some insight into council perspective, and I wanted to draw attention to a few of those. First of all, 4.35 speaks of the success of local government areas of Brimbank, Frankston and Dandenong after introducing local laws. I can attest that I've spoken to Brimbank council officers. They've publicly stated that their introduction of local laws solved their hoon problem. That's the word they used. Another clause trivializes the problem. It says there have not been significant hoon events in Port Phillip since October 2021. Our members would dispute that. Local social media can run hot with it. There's a few clauses there that speak about the Hooning Community Reference Group. My association was instrumental in advocating for establishment of that group, and we're active members of it, so we have good knowledge. And there are two options there presented, one being no hoon law or a new hoon law. And we're strongly commending option 2 for adoption. So we say that hoon behaviour is currently being considered, or it says hoon behaviour is currently being considered by the state government. No reason to address it here. We recommend that if state law supersedes local laws later, that's fine. But in the meantime, let's have our own coverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Right on time. All right, I also need to go online or virtual. Oh, I don't have a person's name there. Is that Tim? Do we have a second virtual? Okay, they're not here. That's all right. Then we'll move on to in-person. Terence Glenane, are you here? Hi, Terence. Name, suburb, and 2 minutes, please. Oh, sorry. You're speaking to item 10.2, the Sportsground conditions, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
My name's Terry. I'm a St Kilda resident. I'm the president of the dog owners group of St Kilda. Speaking to the Sportsground conditions, councillors already have my submissions. Port Phillip gardens and public spaces are wonderful assets that we must all strive to protect and enhance. I think we all agree with that. Council has reviewed the current condition of its sporting fields. Council intends to conduct a new public tender process to improve the maintenance program. We support this proposal and submit that the invitation to tender should include 2 issues that will help councillors make an informed decision on our sports grounds. Tenderers should be asked, how can our sports grounds best be managed to allow both organised sport and informal community groups, such as dog walking? How can our sports grounds be managed to deter foxes? Some considerations to support our submissions follow. The current maintenance contract means that the peanut farm is mowed too frequently and to a height that during unacceptable hot weather spells, grass mowed on hot days dies back on the same day. This is an example of deficiencies with the current maintenance contract. Fertiliser choice at the peanut farm has not been fit for purpose. Sometimes black sticky fertiliser has been used that sticks to users' feet and hands, stains clothes and picnic rugs. Sometimes blood and bone or chicken meal fertiliser has been used. Dogs have to be leashed to prevent them from instinctively wanting to dig up pallets. Tenderers should provide information to council on the most appropriate fertiliser choice. Foxes are a significant problem. They dig for insects and other foods such as organic fertiliser, blood and bone. Their divots and holes can wrongly be blamed on dogs. It would be very useful for council to have feedback from tenderers on how best to control fox numbers. The recent is that 2 minutes?
Yes, it goes quickly. But Terry, we've had your submission, so thank you very much.
Okay.
And we've
in essence, I just want to...
one more line, please.
Okay. That the dog owners group alone has more users of the Peanut Farm Mobile than all the sports clubs put together. So I want that considered in their management strategy. Thank you.
I call upon Helen Taylor, speaking to item 10.2, sports ground conditions, responses to notice of motion. Helen, are you here?
I am. Can you hear me?
You're online. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was looking for you in the room. Name,
Right.
suburb, and 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. My name's Helen Taylor. I'm a ratepayer and an owner of properties within Port Melbourne. I would like to specifically raise questions regarding the report of 10.2 of Sportsground Conditions Response to Notice of Motion submitted for this meeting on the 1st of March. I have also, hopefully you have a copy of what I'm talking about today. The review has been conducted over 14 sites, 8 of them reside in Port Melbourne. We are all familiar with the challenges that a shift from a medium density to high density living presents in our inner city living. There is a need to find a balance between our open space, green spaces and new development of high rises, schools, facilities, sporting facilities. I've been here for over 20 years and I believe we're now at a critical point of future development and sustainable living. At the moment, what I've heard tonight, there is a lot of work we need to do. Key points regarding this report, key points and issues, point 4.4, has been raised by Alex earlier in a question, so I won't go into that, but basically 8 out of 50 represents 16%, where if you use Lagoon Reserve as an example, that you're stating that damage is done by dogs. Overall, I believe the council needs to define its complaints, if complaints are from residents, and that statements are fact-based and not anecdotal. Regarding point 7.1, the financial impact, has also been noted in your budget that it will not consider or provide budget for additional use, such as dog off-lead. I think this is a critical component to any current or future developments within Port Melbourne. As we know, we have over 8,500 dogs in the community. The last point 9, you've received 72 requests for sporting, of which you've granted 25. Overall, I'd just like to understand that we are giving, are these Port Phillip residents, and are we actually supporting the actual community? Overall, my personal experience every night in Lagoon Reserve is that we have between 30 to 50 dogs, and I reject comments in the report stating any damages due to dog if it has not been it's not fact-based information. I appreciate what Terry's comments just said, and I've also included in my document photos of this week that clearly shows lack of maintenance, care and overuse on the grounds of sporting facilities has caused more damage.
Thank you.
The protection of
Thank you. That was 2 minutes, Helen. Yep.
I think the ongoing health and wellbeing of residents and future population growth, we do need to really, really look at this, because the continuous repurposing of community spaces is inadequate for high density living needs. Thank you.
Helen. I call upon Alex Macon, back up to the chair, Alex, speaking to item 10.2, sports ground conditions.
Alex Macon, Port Melbourne. Speaking in relation to item 10.2, firstly I just want to acknowledge the challenges that Council has in the maintenance and the facilitation of sporting grounds for multiple uses, including obviously sports and passive recreation and dog owners as well. I note that the Council report states that Council estimates that 90% of service requests were received by Council about sporting grounds being attributable to damage caused by dogs. It would be useful to understand how Council determined this figure and what time frame that figure took place, and the proportion of those requests per each reserve, the total number of dog users on each of those reserves, and the proportion of dog users relative to the number of maintenance requests. The reason I ask this is this very same report identifies Lagoon Reserve as an example and says that there were 50 requests over a 12-month period, of which 8 were directly attributed to dogs, which is a figure of 16%, not 90%. I ask this because I think it's really important that as councillors, as council officers, we look at how we can facilitate multiple usage of our reserves. As we appreciate, we're in an area experiencing densification. There's a limited supply of public open space. We need to ensure that sport users, passive recreation users, dogs, dog owners can all enjoy these reserves. Given that Council in this same report identifies that there's issues around its existing contracts, I urge Council to look at, as part of this future tender process, to ensure that it accommodates multiple uses of those reserves. I note that Lagoon Reserve has been off-leash well before the timeframe of 2018 when these existing contracts were in place. So I question why Council has not allocated the resources to support multiple of use, including, of course, off-leash use of dogs. I once again just urge Council to consider how it can support that multiple usage and ensure that we can enjoy those reserves for sport uses and dog usage as well. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Alex. I have one more speaker, so if there's anybody other than Nick Bailey, Nick, can you come on down, that's here to speak, please let us know. Otherwise, I call upon Nick Bailey speaking to item 13.1, South Melbourne Town Hall, proposed lease to ANAM. Hello, Nick.
Hi, thanks, Mayor and councillors. I just wanted to talk to the submissions that have been tabled this evening in response to the Council's Have Your Say project. With over 550 responses received, the public consultation has clearly secured a high level of engagement from the community, and I'd like to suggest that the message to Council is deafening. Clearly, the community regards ANAM's proposal as a good idea. I'd like to take this opportunity, though, to just speak to a couple of the misconceptions or misunderstandings that I've noted as I've read through some of the submissions. Contrary to the suggestion that's been made there, ANAM did not include Council's logo in any of the materials outlining our plans for the Town Hall. We worked very hard, in fact, to ensure that our efforts to put the facts of our proposal before the community did not blur Council's messaging. Council's logo did not appear on any of our printed collateral, and the only inclusion of the Council logo as part of our standard logo lock-up on our website with Commonwealth Government and State Government funders and other organisations. In fact, ANAM did not explicitly instruct anyone to support our proposal. We outlined the key elements and we invited people to let Council know what they thought. We're very clear on that. If for 1 second we were to put to one side those members of the community who identify as part of the ANAM family, that still leaves 89% of the remaining 380 respondents supporting the proposal. So it's not just something that's reflective of people who are already committed to ANAM. So clearly the proposal aligns with the interests of a wide rather than a narrow part of the community, which has sometimes been suggested. Regarding ANAM, it's suggested that ANAM is a private organisation. It is not. It's a government-funded entity, half owned by the Commonwealth Government and therefore the taxpayers of Australia. And to suggest that ANAM's vision only appeals to a narrow sector is loudly contradicted by the responses, as I say, 380 people not professing any connection to ANAM. It was stated at one point that ANAM has an alternate site set up somewhere. It does not. There is no alternate site set for ANAM's home in the arts precinct, as was suggested. Regarding the lease, as has been discussed previously, 50 years is required in order for us to secure the investment that we're seeking from various parties. ANAM is not investing the money in making the facility fit for ANAM's purposes. 40 million is invested straight in Council's asset, 10 million only in making the asset fit for ANAM's purposes. I'll come to an end and just see if... so the core of ANAM's proposal is to activate the spaces for the community, not to activate spaces for ANAM. It is all going, predominantly going into the public-facing parts of the building, not into the music school side of the building. ANAM will not be directing or controlling the bookings for the venues. 15 workstations will be made available in the redeveloped building for cultural organisations and other not-for-profits. The assist office will continue in the building, and Council will continue to conduct council meetings and citizenship ceremonies. All of these things have been contradicted. So, in conclusion, the overwhelming majority of the Port Phillip community see our proposed transformation of this community asset as a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. All right, so no other speakers are here tonight. We're about an hour and a half in the meeting. I'm going to say we're going to take about a 5-minute break, and we'll come back with the items and the reports. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Sorry that was a bit longer than we expected, but we feel more sorted for a smooth meeting. All right, so our next item, let's see where we're at. Councillor question time. Councillors, do you have any questions you'd like to raise in general, not any items on tonight? No one online? Marcus, you're upside down online. It's very bizarre. That's different. Yeah. It's like a spoon reflection. Yeah. Marcus, you're upside down. Are you there? Are you okay? Okay. There's at least a movement, sign of life. All right. We'll move on to ceilings. I think there's no questions. Let's move on to ceiling schedule. Councillors, we have no items for ceiling on tonight's agenda. We'll move on to petitions and joint letters. Councillors, we do have one petition, but no joint letters on tonight's agenda. That's 7.1 petition, Communal Food Organics Hub, Bay Street, Port Melbourne. Are there any questions of the officers in relation to this report? I don't see any. Do I have a mover for this? All right. Councillor Martin and a seconder, Councillor Crawford. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, can I thank the petitioners for putting forward a very, very sensible petition, and for the representative of the petitioners who spoke fairly eloquently tonight. Can I thank the council officers who've worked with the petition, because I think the recommendation that's come up is brilliant, and I just would hope that there are lots of other community groups that can exercise as much common sense as these people have. I think it's a wonderful outcome, a common sense outcome, and I hope we support it.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford? No? Anybody else want to speak to this one? All right. Then, councillors, let's put that one to the vote. All in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Did she already go? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that one. We'll move on to the presentation of reports. Councillors, are there any questions for the first item we have tonight is 10.1 Proposed Local Law 2022-23. Sorry. All right. You have a question? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Probably Mr T is the person who can answer this best. And normally when we go to consultation, we'll put up 2 or 3 options, and our community is able to almost like enter into a debate during the consultation process, and we come back to council and we weigh up the result of the community's recommendations. But I believe that there are legal reasons why the consultation process of the local law can't take place in the way that we would normally undergo that consultation. Perhaps Mr T could explain it a bit more clearly for councillors and for those who are beaming into the council meeting.
Thank you. Brian T.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Mayor. The process for engagement for the creation of a local law is not a council process. It is a process that is prescribed in Section 73 of the Local Government Act, and it requires, and the relevant part is subsection 3, which says that the council must publish a notice in writing outlining the objectives of the proposed local law, the intended effect of the proposed local law, and a copy of the proposed local law so that it can be made available for inspection at the council offices and the council's internet state. So the requirement is that the local law is made available, and then subsequently there is a further procedure should council wish to change that going forward. So there's not an opportunity under the local law to put forward alternatives.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Martin?
So just to clarify, Mr T, at the end of tonight's meeting, presumably council will come up with a local law for consultation that won't involve any alternatives, but that during the consultation process, if there are people there who believe that the councillors, for whatever reason, got one or more clauses wrong tonight, they can still make that comment, and then when it all comes back to council at the end of the consultation process, councillors could then change one or more of those clauses based on community feedback, but then the whole process would start again. Is that basically what you're saying?
Through you, Mayor. So that's right, Councillor Martin. The Act provides that the local laws go out, that they are consulted in. If, as a result of the community feedback, council wants to consider an alternative to that has gone out, then where that alternative impacts the rights of an individual, then those laws, that law, the changed law, does need to then go out again and be consulted upon.
See you.
Through you, Mayor, just in the interest of absolute transparency as well, there's a bit of a nuance in this particular case because our current local law is expiring and it has a sunset clause. So we need to make sure at any time we do have a valid local law. So in this particular case, the council would need to consider the local law, adopt it, and then at the same time, if you want to make changes, you could say these are the kind of changes that we want to make, and then consult on that through a separate proposed local law. But we need to make sure at any point in time we have the local law in place.
So again, for clarification, that would mean that at the end of the consultation process, we could come back and pass the law that's gone out to consultation, but then say to people, this law is only in for X weeks because we want to debate on Clause B or Clause D, and then come back and change that at a later date. Is that how I'm reading this?
Through you, Mayor, that's right. It'd be more than a couple of weeks by the time you do the process. You have to have a statutory period, I think, of at least 28 days. But take us a little bit of time to pull things together as well. But yeah, so it'd be a short term if you decide to make changes. But there's a process that we'd need to go through for that. So changes can happen, just not through the way that you normally at the end of a debate around how we consult on a strategy, for instance. In this case, there's a process that we'd need to follow.
Thanks. I'm going to go online to Councillor Niagui.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, can I acknowledge that I'm on Quayle land in Washington State in the United States today. My question to officers was in regard to the existing nuisance law and the proposed changes. Would the proposed changes broaden the coverage of that rule? And also, with regard to the proposed change law, would B to E of that be in addition to the creation of a nuisance offence, or would it be covered within that existing nuisance offence? And would any of the stuff, if it didn't include it in the existing nuisance offence, go beyond any state legislation as it currently sits?
I refer to Brian T.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I wasn't able to pick up some of the question, but to the extent that the...
Do you want to ask it again? Yeah, can you ask the question again, Robbie? Councillor Niagui? It's a little bit hard to hear you, but we're doing our best.
No worries. It's a bad line. So my question was in relation to the nuisance proposal. I wanted to firstly get clarity as to whether the possible proposed changes would have a broader coverage than the existing rules around behaviour on council land, and also whether within that new proposal, whether points B to E would be covered by point A with the creation of a nuisance offence, or would go beyond, and if they do go beyond, whether they would be covered by existing state legislation.
Councillor Niagui, right now we're going to put some general questions out. No one's moved any motions right now, so the questions have to be probably a little bit more generic. And later on, when someone actually moves something, if you have a clarifying question, that would be the right time.
No worries. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to go online to Councillor Pearl.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You can hear me clearly?
Yes.
No worries. My question is in relation to, sorry, just have to move my screen around, section 35, which relates to special events. So can we seek clarification on the application of this? So let me give you two scenarios, and I'll request if these events would now require permits. So let's say a 12-year-old child wants to put a table on a council footpath to hold a stall or a Christmas stall, etc. Is that now on council land? Would that require a permit? And we've now stopped road closures for the second example in the city of Port Phillip for Christmas parties, and those Christmas parties now take place on the nature strips and footpaths. If those events have tables and chairs, etc., would they now require permits under section 35?
Good questions. Who wants to take that one?
We might take a few minutes just to consider that and come back, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not really looking for...
I will comment on that further, Councillor Pearl. When we had the South Beach events in the middle of winter, where we had the music festival, where we had, is it Joe Camilleri, JJ Zepp and the Falcons and all that down there, I said to one of the officers, why don't we have fire pits down here? It would be wonderful if we could all stand around fire pits and listen to the music. And apparently they are illegal under our current local law. So what this is doing is allowing us, amongst other things, is to have fire pits at events like a music festival on South Beach in the middle of June and July.
All right. Did that answer your question, Councillor Pearl, or do you still need officers to come back?
I'm just wondering if we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater by requiring anything that happens regarding a chair or anything on council land to require a permit.
What I'm going to do is come back to your questions and allow someone else to question. When the officers are ready, they'll let us know. Yeah? All right. So, Councillor Crawford?
I guess I was interested to know if officers in their investigation of this had come across any city in the world that has actually been able to deal with the complexity of the kind of antisocial behaviour and homelessness and mental health, whether there is a model that any city has got right and whether that's actually just local laws or providing of services. And someone mentioned also the City of Melbourne. I believe that's a very different model. Could you actually just recount the extent of that? I'm not sure that they've succeeded, but I just wondered, is there a benchmark where any of these kind of complex, difficult issues have actually been successfully resolved?
Brian T.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. And yes, through the development of local laws, we have had a look at other jurisdictions, including the City of Melbourne, and indeed we've spoken to the police in relation to the City of Melbourne model as part of investigating that, and certainly their view was that the nature of the issues being dealt with there of a different order in terms of severity, because and in part their police response was connected to that. In terms of the more broader question, there have been from time to time models that have led to changes in some jurisdictions that we are aware of, but there are a number of, but as a general rule, inner city locations or locations are struggling with these same issues, and there has not been a model yet that has been able to solve it.
Any other questions? Councillor Serkoff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, once feedback is completed through the community consultation, how does one measure whether an alternative option should be considered for a part of a new local law?
Brian T.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So the consultation will provide people an opportunity to provide broad comments. There'll also be survey comments. There'll be surveys in terms of the various proposals that we put. We will gather that information and then summarise it and make it all available for council, and then council will have an opportunity to digest that, and it'll be ultimately a decision of council to make to determine whether or not to seek further changes to the local law and commence that subsequent process under the Local Government Act.
So, Mr T, I'm just wondering, does it say if we receive 500 submissions, would it be a case of, on a particular law, there was 500 people giving feedback, would it require 50% or 20% or 75% of that feedback to say we are now going to consider, they've suggested we go ahead with they want a new particular law. So is there if you're over 50%, we're going to definitely look at addressing a new local law?
CEO?
Through you, Mayor, that's not generally the way that the consultation processes work. There's no real set threshold. Ultimately, it'll be up to the councillors and their judgment, having heard the various issues, considering the consultation processes and all the other information provided to them, whether they want to make that change. And I think, obviously, the community feedback and the extent of that community feedback can be quite influential. But there's no hard and fast rule. At the end of the day, you'll need to make a judgment with your colleagues around those factors and others in making your decision.
And sorry, if I can just add to that, I've just got the provisions of the Local Government Act here, and they do empower council to make that decision, but they do not describe the matters that council take into account when making that decision.
Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question's somewhat simpler about shopping trolleys. Assuming this all goes out to consultation and gets passed and we put in 30 perimeters and lock systems for trolleys, will that mean we can remove the need to put a coin in the trolley, and that would make life a lot easier for a lot of people? I would imagine if the perimeter system then stops the trolleys from moving outside the shopping centre car parks or whatever.
Brian T.
Thank you. Yes, it'll be, the proposal is that for perimeters, and that will be a requirement for the supermarket to enforce. It might be that the supermarket collects those and doesn't require a coin, or they might use coins as a way to make sure that those trolleys are returned to the supermarket.
I have another fairly simple one. In the draft proposed community amenity local law, number 46 is no smoking in smoke-free areas. Does that include vaping? And if it doesn't, do we need to amend it to possibly say vaping as an emerging product? Sorry, I should have given you a heads up on that one.
It would depend on whether it's a tobacco product.
I think they're not all tobacco products. So would you clarify for me that if it's not a tobacco product, it's maybe not covered underneath that? So if we thought that we needed to cover vaping, we should add it as an amendment?
So I'm just looking at the clause now, and clause 46(1), and it does define, or does say, a person must not smoke a tobacco product in a smoke-free area. That suggests that vaping, that is does not involve tobacco, would not be covered.
Okay, thanks. All right, any other questions? No? All right. Do I have a mover of the officer's recommendation or any other items? Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move an alt rec to this officer's paper.
Thank you. Officers may have a copy of your alt rec. Let's see if they do. Can we have it up on the screen, please? Okay, just working through it, no technical issue. Now, you will have to read this out, I'm sorry.
A whole lot.
Yeah, good luck.
The council approves the following change to clause 17 of the proposed Community Amenity Local Law 2023 in relation to behaviour on council land or roads. From 17, behaviour on council land. 1, a person must not behave on council land, A, in a manner which causes interference with the quiet enjoyment by any person using the council land or living in close proximity to the council land. B, contrary to any conditions or signs that contains conditions applying to the use of council land. Or C, contrary to any direction by an authorised officer for the avoidance of doubt. D, a person does not interfere with the quiet enjoyment of other persons simply expressing political or other opinions which may cause offence. So changing that from 17, behaviour on council land. 1, a person must not on or in council land, a road or a footpath. A, create a nuisance. B, behave in the manner which unreasonably interferes with another person on or in the council land, road or footpath. C, behaves in a manner which unreasonably interferes with another person occupying premises in close proximity to the council land, road or footpath. D, harass any person using the council land, a road or footpath. E, defecate or urinate, except in a toilet or urinal, as the case may be, in a public convenience. F, act contrary to any conditions or signs that contains conditions applying to the use of council land, road or footpath. And G, fail to comply with a reasonable direction of an authorised officer or council staff member whilst on council land. 3.2 approves the addition of the following move-on clause in the proposed Community Amenity Local Law 2023. Number 1, an authorised officer may direct a person to leave the council land, a road or a footpath if that person has contravened this local law. And B, the authorised officer believes on reasonable grounds that 1, unless the person leaves council land, a road or a footpath, the person will continue to contravene this local law, and 2, a continuation of the contravention of this local law will significantly interfere with any other person. 2, a direction given by authorised officer under this clause 1 must be reasonable in the circumstances. And 3, a person given a direction by an authorised officer must comply with the direction. And Part B, approves the release of the proposed Community Amenity Local Law 2023 with any adopted changes as resolved in Part A and the associated community impact statement for community consultation. 3.5, as part of its community consultation process, provides information to the community and seeks feedback on Council's consideration of a Hoon event clause. And 3.6, delegates authority to the CEO or delegate to reflect any changes made by Council at tonight's meeting to make minor typographical corrections or changes and or formatting to the proposed local law and consultation information prior to community consultation.
Good job. Thank you for reading that out. Yeah, I think already that, I think it's on this page be 3.3, 3.4 and 3.5 if I'm seeing it correctly. No? No, they're wrong. But look at the numbers. 3.1, 3.2, 3.4. Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Sierkoff? Okay, let me just catch up. Clark, Sierkoff. Thank you. Now, we'll first go to Councillor Clark to speak, and then you'll get to speak to it, Councillor Sierkoff. I'll allow clarifying questions throughout the process. The way I'm going to go through the vote tonight will be, or this item tonight will be, everyone will have the chance to speak to this in entirety, this alt motion. And if anybody has an amendment or anything that comes up, we'll deal with that at that moment. But you're speaking to the entire thing, then we will vote in parts. So we'll vote 3.1 on its own, 3.2 on its own, and then 3.3 to 3.5 as a third vote. Does anybody have any questions about the process? If not, or any questions, clarifying questions, then Councillor Clark, you can speak to this item.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Council has quite rightly a broad-ranging ability to make laws relating to all aspects of our life and how we live in the municipality, as you can see from this council paper. As councillors, we receive many complaints and queries relating to local laws, and for some residents, particularly in Balaclava and St Kilda, around community safety, amenity and their ability, real or perceived, in how they can live in the community safely. This is a significant concern, and everyone should have the right to feel safe in their community. It's also important to clarify that no amount of local laws can substitute for the needs for our police to manage criminal behaviour. Drug dealing, taking drugs, assaults and other crimes must be dealt with by the police. There is often a misunderstanding that Council can resolve these matters, and I think I speak for all when I say that we would love to receive more police to assist with these issues, but we also appreciate all that the police do for us and support us. With regards to local laws, we have many changes coming tonight for consultation. In the ones that relate to community amenity, the change to the definition of furniture and items on council footpaths and land provides, I think, some improved understanding for the community about what will be allowed, and also provides the opportunity for council officers to remove certain furniture when it is safe to do so. So I think that's a very good change that's coming in for consultation tonight. With regards to the recommendation of the nuisance laws, I am supportive of the nuisance laws being included as part of the consultation document. Some of the concerns that the community have are directly related to people who are impacting the quiet enjoyment of our streets and neighbourhoods. This change to the local law gives the council local laws officers the opportunity to intervene and request that the person stop that offending behaviour once again if it is safe to do so. In many cases, this could alleviate the unpleasant behaviours and allow the rest of the community to enjoy their activities. This will not solve all the problems, and people should realise that some nuisance issues require the police, or it is not unsafe for the local laws officers to be able to deal with it. In terms of move-on laws, once again, many of the requirements to utilise move-on laws require the police to assist the local laws officers, as there can be unsafe circumstances, and we do not want to put officers in harm's way. However, where it's safe to do so, this change would allow the officers to use their discretion to move people on with the aim of restoring public confidence and amenity to that area. It is about broadening the powers that council officers have when they feel it's safe to do so, and expanding where they can support the community when it's safe to do so. With regards to camping, there is a clear concern in the community for camping or permanent sleeping type arrangements of some very small amount of people. There are issues raised around when or how council officers can manage this, and it's a complex area where many of the people have complex needs, and we reach out to various organisations to assist us with this. It's highly visible to our community, who have concerns about the ongoing nature of camping on the streets and parks, and sometimes with unpleasant outcomes for the residents. The discussion about this issue and the proposed changes that were put in this council paper removed the reference to mental illness and disability while retaining the homeless definition. And this is the sort of important point here. This would mean that homeless people would be removed from the camping local law, but mentally ill people would not would be allowed to be moved on, or would no longer be allowed to camp under this proposed change. The ongoing camping is a real issue. However, the wording of the change to remove one element and leave the other is not reasonable in my view. The existing local law means that only mentally ill and homeless people are allowed to continue camping on the street. The proposed amendment as it stands at the moment is that we would retain the homeless part. Many homeless people are also suffer mental health challenges as well. The existing law allows all those people who have homes or options for homes should not be allowed to camp unless they're mentally ill or homeless. The challenge for council in this regard is to enforce the existing local laws and bring transparency to how we are implementing this law. With transparency should allow a better understanding and highlight where the deficiencies are, if there are any, that would allow us to consider future changes to reduce the ongoing and entrenched camping. We will need to focus also, as some of the speakers have spoken about tonight, about the improved implementation of our no drinking policies on streets, which I also think could have a big impact. So in terms of bringing this alt motion tonight, it is to include the nuisance laws and the move-on laws and not the camping for the reasons that I've outlined, and with particular reason to allow the consultation paper that goes out to the community to have these two proposed changes in them and get the full feedback from the community, and so they can have their say as we go through the process of finalising the local laws. I think it's very important that the community has their say and that we receive that feedback and councillors can. It doesn't stop councillors from then deciding what they want to support or not support once it comes back to chambers to be voted on. All we're talking about tonight is going out for consultation, and there's a process by which we can do that. And if any changes are to be made, then there's also a process around that as well, which has been outlined. So going out tonight and voting for this alternative motion is not voting for the local law, it's voting for a consultation with the community. And I think that's what being a councillor is all about. And as such, I would urge my fellow councillors to support the full consultation and include these two changes in the paper that goes out to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Serikoff.
Thank you, Mayor. While I've been on council, I've become even more aware of the antisocial issues on our high streets and on the back streets affecting the daily lives of our community. Councillors, and especially Lake Ward councillors, given the number of people who have spoken tonight from the St Kilda area, have received many emails from traders, and notably from the presidents of both the Ackland Street and Fitzroy Street Traders Associations, imploring that council do something to improve their safety and the safety of their customers. The repeated message is traders and residents are subjected to abuse and being screamed at and putting up with the drug dealing, shooting up, camping, urinating and defecating outside their shops. I've also heard the same complaints from locals who won't or are reluctant to take their families to our iconic what we would consider our iconic high streets, and instead these families head elsewhere for a family outing. I have two examples of such emails. 1 year ago, on the 26th of February 2022, Janet Rosenberg, who is present tonight and is president of Ackland Street Traders Association, wrote to the Mayor, CEO, Councillor Bond and myself stating the following: the plaza particularly has been terrible the last couple of weeks, with public drug taking and alcohol being consumed in front of families, etc. Our traders are also exacerbated and many customers are being abused. And we heard Janet saying the same thing tonight. On the 22nd of November 2022, David Blakely, also present, wrote to all councillors and the acting CEO at the time, and now CEO. He said, David said the following: we are sometimes seeing gatherings of drug-affected people blocking the whole path. We are seeing people who have housing but are still camping outside active businesses for days on end. To walk the street is to be regularly exposed to injecting, smoking ice pipes, abuse, spitting and verbal assaults. And David again repeated the same message. I can give many more examples of the emails sent to council because I have kept all of those emails from traders and residents who want to see change for the better on our high streets. Both Janet and David expressed themselves very well on behalf of their fellow traders because of the antisocial behaviour, the abuse and the camping on our high streets has not gone away. In addressing the local laws item, I would like to thank officers for the work that has gone into preparing the local laws paper for consideration tonight, and including options for those local laws that deal with antisocial behaviour. Our responsibility as councillors is to listen to our community's concerns, and I would like to thank everyone who came tonight to tell us about their adverse lived experiences and why we need to consider alternative options and bring them to the table for community consultation tonight. Listening to residents, I found it heart-wrenching and stomach-turning to hear what they're going through. I'm in support of the majority of the local laws in this paper, but want to focus on three in particular, the ones that are most controversial, and that is behaviour on council land, move-on powers and camping on council land. And this is all about having community consultation, not actually deciding on what will go into the final laws. To allow for proper community consultation, the two options proposed for each of the local laws should be included in the community consultation process, As councillors, we must support a process that is transparent and gives everyone, traders and residents alike, the opportunity to provide further feedback on the issues that they have to deal with every day. If, for example, only option 1 regarding behaviour on council land is voted up, then we are completely dismissing what the community have been wanting council to address over the years. It would be basically accepting the status quo of no change, even though the current laws are not working. Dismissing any proposed new local laws is denying there is a problem. We cannot continue to play down that there are no community safety and amenity issues. Just today, unfortunately, I found out that when we vote on the issues tonight, we can't actually vote up for community consultation that both option 1 and option 2 go out. We have to decide only on one. And so I find it really difficult in actually accepting that, but that's the way that things go. So in terms of behaviour on council land, which includes the new nuisance aspect, I'm in favour of this being the option to choose to go out to community consultation. To have, as I said, to have both options for each local law would have been a preferred outcome, so as to inform the community what can be considered, and would give our community the opportunity to say if they agree or disagree with the proposed local laws, and they might even provide some insight for a better way to deal with safety on our streets. I'd also like to remind the community, people here tonight and also councillors, that back in 2019 there was a petition of close to 2,000 signatures addressing the need for better community safety. And also in December 2021, 2 years later, a community safety meeting was held in the St Kilda Town Hall, again addressing safety issues on our streets. Our community expects to have their say with all the options on the table, and this is a time to give them that opportunity and to listen to them. But since we do not have that choice of putting all options, my support is to have option 2 for the nuisance law, basically, and also move on. This review occurs only once every 10 years, and the community wants to have their say on all options. So I encourage everybody in the community, when we got with this opportunity, to please put in your say, so that we've got this full spectrum of what people are going through. Thank you.
I have a clarifying question there.
Yes, Councillor Nyagui, go ahead with a clarifying question.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the same question from before in relation to the nuisance provisions. Could council officers expand on whether the proposed changes would expand basically the coverage of the local law from its existing wording, and also whether with the proposed changes, whether the point A, which was around creation of a nuisance offence, would whether B to E within that nuisance offence would be covered by point A, the original point, or whether that's actually a broader area, and whether if that is the case, whether any of those points, so B to E, are covered by existing state legislation.
Brian T.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the last question in terms of coverage by state legislation, this is an issue that council officers were acutely aware of in drafting not only this clause but the other clauses as well, and we've received legal advice in relation to this. A local law cannot impinge upon, cannot cover the same areas as a state law, and therefore they have been carefully drafted to ensure that that doesn't occur. And so, for example, in the case of this provision, it is limited. Its application is limited to council land, road, or footpath, as just an example of the ways in which we've ensured that we do not trespass upon state legislation. The second question is, does it expand the current definition? And I'd say this, it certainly clarifies the current definition, which is limited to, in essence, acquired enjoyment, but it does more than that. It does expand the current behaviour on council law land, and the example is, of course, that it expands it to road and footpath, but also the definition of a nuisance, which is a legally defined concept, is a broad concept, and it would go beyond some of the areas in the current clause.
Thank you. CEO.
Through you, Mayor, and Dirk Cummings might be able to help us a little bit with this in terms of my understanding in part. If we just keep it broad at nuisance, it's still going to be a little bit problematic for officers to interpret how to enforce that. And so the intention here is to provide some additional, if this is the path that council wants to go down, is to provide some additional definitions so we're pretty clear for officers about what they should be enforcing.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, if that's possible.
Yes.
Mayor? So given all of that, what was the reasoning behind deciding to propose the continuance of the existing wording and not to change?
Through you, Mayor, on balance, I think again, officers are acutely aware of the community safety issues and community concerns, and also really wanting to be able to help as much as we can. On balance, when we considered the adjustment to this, officers felt there was a couple of issues with it in terms of potentially its enforceability. So in a situation where you want this to be enforced, it's most likely going to be in a situation where council officers are not going to have the power to enforce it without police assistance. So when people are behaving nicely, generally speaking, it's very easiest for us to enforce things or ask them to behave. But generally speaking, the kind of things you're hearing about that are happening on the street at the moment are not when people are behaving reasonably, nicely, etc. So the reality is, in most instances, our ability to enforce that without police assistance, if you were to change these things, in the majority of cases, particularly in the cases that you want to be enforced, our officers are unlikely to be able to enforce it without police support. So it may create an expectation that we can't deliver upon. And there are some other longer term, the team believes there may be some issues as well around what it means in terms of their ability, if they go down this enforcement path like this, to work with constructively some of the people on the street, which is actually part of the strategy that they have today. Not necessarily always effective, absolutely, but they were concerned it may be counterproductive and difficult for them to enforce.
Thank you. Councillor Bond.
In the original motion where you have 17(1) Part D, for the avoidance of doubt, a person does not interfere with the quiet enjoyment of other persons simply expressing political or other opinions which may cause offence. That clause is not replicated in the revised 17(1) with its clauses A through G. Is there any reason that doesn't appear in there? Is that something to do with the definition of a nuisance makes that clause redundant, or is there a reason it's not there? Because I think that's something that I'm sort of the opinion should be replicated in the revised 17(1), should be slotted in at H or something like that, just so that we're very, very clear here. We're not seeking to stifle any political expression or opinions or anything like that. We're dealing with behaviours here.
Brian T.
Through you, Mayor, I think that the legal consideration of it was that it was unnecessary as it was protected elsewhere.
Thank you. At this moment, do we have any other clarifying questions? If not, we'll go back to speaking to...
I've got one, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Pearl.
That's okay. If you just go back to the page before, if that's okay. Yep, okay, so I was getting a bit confused. So it's 17.1C, and if you go forward to the next one, 17.1C, is it... Maybe I'm missing something there, but it looks like is that meant to be 17.2? That actually wasn't my question, but I was just getting confused when I asked the text to get emailed to me so I could look at it more carefully. But it seems to be there's multiple 17.1s. But on the previous slide, if you go back one, 17.1C on the other one, not on this slide.
Can we clarify? There's a from, so this is just like a summary of the previous one, and then it goes to in that next slide. Do you have the copy on the email?
No, I asked. Well, I've got a copy that was circulated by Rhonda before, but I sent an email before saying just give me exactly what's on the screen. So is this a summary?
I think the governance officer has sent to you the current version, if you want to pull that up. Yeah, it's just it's kind of a duplication of saying to be clear and transparent what we're changing from to what we're changing to, but they are not identical as Councillor Bonds just identified.
Okay. Sorry, Madam Mayor, just go. I'll just read what's here and I'll come back to you for a further clarifying question. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll keep going on to speakers to this alt motion. So I've had Councillor Clark and Councillor Sirikoff. Does anybody else want to go next? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, thank you to the council officers. Thank you to my council colleagues. We've had a number of meetings informally where we've debated a number of the issues here. Thank you so much to all the speakers who've come along. Some of them are still here. Some of them have spoken online. And as Councillor Sirikoff says, it's a little distressing to hear of some of the things that have happened in Port Phillip, and I'm a little bit older than some of the rest of you, so I've been seeing him a bit longer than you all, and I think all of us around the table here would love to find a way of solving things. There are a number of recommendations that the council officers have come up with, and we as a council have decided not to, or sorry, the council officers have come up with recommendations which we've decided not to proceed with at this time. So you'll see there, I know that some of the people in Gateway Ward are very, very concerned about hooning, and at the moment we're not looking at proceeding with a hooning bylaw just at the moment. However, I think we're all very, very concerned with hooning, and we'd be looking to have some sort of consultation process with all the people of Port Phillip so that we could put pressure on the state government to see what we can do across the state to eliminate that. We had some people speaking here earlier today about short-term rental properties, and there are issues there as well. And we don't have the magic solution there. Mornington IC has just come up with a local law which they haven't really had a chance to test yet. It's probably something that we need to seek advice on from our community, and perhaps, again, try and work with the state government to ensure there's some sort of consistency across the state that makes people living near short-term rental properties a little more comfortable than they currently are. So there are two issues that I'm hoping that we as a council will take back separately to the consultation on these local laws. So that's hooning and short-term rentals. We've also noted some issues there about off-leash dog parks. That's going to come up to another consultation process further on. So there are a number of things here that, although we're not changing the local laws tonight, there will be opportunity for the community to have their say, and hopefully that we'll be able to make some significant changes either at a local level or more hopefully with the state government, particularly in issues such as hooning and with short-term residential rentals. But I suppose the thing that they're all most concerned about tonight are the local laws that address safety, and I know that particularly in areas like Ackland Street, Fitzroy Street, parts of South Melbourne, and we've listened with some distress to some of the things that have been said tonight. My understanding, and officers can correct me if I'm wrong, is that the laws that whatever we agree on tonight will go out to consultation, it will come back to council. Council may wish to, as a result of the consultation, take further investigation, but my understanding is that given the short timelines and the new local law has to be in place until July the 1st, it could be possible that whatever comes out of tonight that goes to consultation, if that's and then gets agreed to could at least be in place for the short term before any other significant changes are made. So can I urge my council colleagues to exercise a little caution if we have any doubt that something might have a greater impact than perhaps we would intend, that we take the lesser of the two options in the short term, which gives us more time to consider that, so that further down the track, if we did want to come up with something that was potentially, I don't want to use the word drastic, that's not fair, that perhaps gave more powers to our council officers, for example, that we had more time to consider that. So having said all that, when we come to voting on these, I'll be speaking against the move-on laws. I well understand why people would like to see them, and I'm sure that people will be disappointed if they don't get up. But the way that our council is staffed with our council officers, I'm not sure that by giving our council officers this power is actually going to have any positive effect. We've had people talking about how they're scared to walk our streets. They don't want to have, they don't want to see children walking down streets. People have been assaulted, and I'd hate to see our council officers being assaulted as well. And yes, if people are behaving illegally, our police should be there, and they should be, the full force of the law should be used against them. But I don't believe that council officers are in the best place to do that. And I believe that if we pass a bylaw that gives our council officers those move-on powers, we're actually putting our council officers at risk, and we perhaps need to work with Victoria Police and others to make sure that there are better ways of dealing with those people who are misbehaving on our streets. And I'm sure it's ghastly out there. I've seen it myself. I know it's ghastly, but I'm not sure that the move-on laws are the perfect response to that. And even if we, and I've looked at the nuisance laws, and may well be going to support the nuisance laws. Even if we pass the modified nuisance bylaw, we're still asking a lot of our council officers, and if we're going to do that, we probably need to resource them better, train them better, perhaps have more council officers as well, so that we're not setting up bylaws that are doomed to fail. They may read very well, and they may give some immediate comfort to people. Oh, gee, the council's come up with these really good bylaws. It's going to solve everything. And if our council officers aren't in a position to deliver, we're actually giving false hope to people and misleading them. And I'd hope that we could spend more time looking at how we can address these issues in other ways rather than simply empowering our council officers. And given that some of the people on our streets have got a raft of very, very serious issues, we should probably be also looking at preventative measures. If we can stop those behaviours in the first place, or come up with alternative solutions, that's far better than having to deal with them further down the track. So, for example, the new Wellington Street facility that's going to hopefully take many of our people off the street and allow them to get appropriate support, that's going to be a brilliant way of helping to remove people from our streets. And that's probably, in my belief, it's almost like a preventative measure, and far better outcomes for all involved, the officers involved, the people who become residents there, and for the people on the street as well. So I urge you all, councillors, when you're looking at these bylaws, to think not just how they read and they read well and they're going to give us powers and we'll be able to do this, 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 and the people who've spoken tonight so eloquently will go away and think, gee, the council's looked after us. If the bylaws that we pass aren't going to deliver, it's not helping anyone. In fact, it might be putting some of our council officers at more risk than they currently are. And it was great to hear a couple of the speakers say that our team out on the street do a brilliant job. So thank you to the people who do that. And I know they do a brilliant job, but they don't have all the support that they'd like from Vic Poll and others. And if we can help get that for them and perhaps support them more as well, that's probably a far better outcome than looking at putting through bylaws that we can't really deliver on.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Anybody else want to speak to this item tonight? Councillor Bond.
Probably very similar thoughts to Councillor Martin tonight. We've heard from our community, the traders, the residents, many that they believe there's a role council need to play and a role the police need to play in improving the community safety in our area. And I think I'm probably going to disappoint some people tonight with the way I vote, but I will be supporting 3.1, which deals with behaviours. and behaviours is something we can all observe and address, but I won't be supporting 3.2, which deals with straight move-on laws, as I think that's probably a step too far for me to support. I know there's also discussion amongst many in the community that we support laws that deal with hooning in our community or the hooning spectators in our community. That's something I also don't support. I don't see much difference between the two laws, the move-on law on Fitzroy Street and finding people for standing around watching hooning. What we should be doing is addressing the behaviour itself. So if there is behavioural problems on Fitzroy Street, address the behaviour, not just the person standing there. And if there's hooning happening in our community, address the person doing the hooning, not just someone who happens to be standing there watching. 3.1 deals with direct behaviours. I think it's something that council will be able to enforce, or council officers will be able to enforce in a number of instances. And there will also be instances when they'll need police support, which happens at times now, and that may occur and that may be required when we implement some of these changes should 3.1, the new proposal, be acceptable. Some of the other changes to the local law that don't just deal with the behaviours and community safety, things like there's a furniture clause which helps us clean up our streets a bit better and get a bit better at removing furniture that's blocking footpaths and happens to be laying all over our streets. There's the fire pit changes to our special events. I didn't realise until probably 6 months ago that fire pits were illegal on council land in the city of Port Phillip. So I'm glad to see we've done that to give events who may want to have a fire pit at their event the opportunity to do so. I think Councillor Martin spoke about Wellington Street and the facility council is supporting there. It will hopefully certainly assist us in dealing with a lot of the problems, a lot of the homelessness, and a lot of the mentally ill people who we all observe and whose behaviours sometimes frustrate many people. But the first step in ensuring these people get treatment and get receive the health outcomes that they need is to put a roof over their head, because they won't turn up to their appointments if they don't have a roof over their head. So the Wellington Street Common Ground facility, first step is put a roof over their head, and then you can deal with the remainder of the concerns and the remainder of the issues. But without that roof over the head, you're just not going to do it. And that's why I think I've been a very strong supporter of that over the years, and will continue to do so, as that is, in conjunction with the change to our local laws, or some of our local laws, the two are both required equally to address some of the behavioural concerns we're seeing here. There is, we hear a lot of concerns about people ring the police, they don't turn up. All I can say is we need to urge people, if you see something that is a criminal offence, a criminal act, if you see drinking in Ackland Street, poor behaviour on Fitzroy Street, or anything else, do keep continuing to call the police, report it. Because an increase in the crime stats is the only way the police will get more resources. While the crime stats say they don't need more resources, they're not going to get them. So I know it's frustrating when you police may or may not turn up, but please continue to ring 000, report all the instances, as council officers will need to do when they observe behaviours down there, and we just have to reflect these behaviours in the crime stats, and then we will get more police to help us address some of these concerns we're all witnessing. So, yeah, I know, as I said, some may be disappointed with the way I vote tonight that I'm not supporting these move-on laws, but I just think it's a step too far, and I fear there's opportunity for misuse there by any level of government, as we saw over the last couple of years. I certainly don't want the City of Port Phillip to have those laws on their books. I'm not saying we're going to misuse them, but I just don't think they should be on the books. We should not just be able to walk up to someone on the street and say, you need to move on for whatever reason, if they just happen to be standing there doing nothing in particular. If they're committing a crime, fair enough, ring the police, deal with that, but they just happen to be standing there doing nothing. I don't think telling people to move on just because some others may find them intimidating is an acceptable outcome to me. So, as I said, I'll be supporting 3.1 but not 3.2 and urge my fellow councillors to vote how they feel.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Mayor. And Councillor Bond, we'll get the champagne out, we agree on something,
Woohoo!
ring the bell, put the coin in the jar. There's $2 in that jar. No, we agree on the thing about how we can actually try and manage behaviour rather than simply the existence of people that we think may or may not be a problem. And I think that that's a really important distinction to make. Over the years, what we've seen is a gradual move towards more punitive local laws and actions which move from addressing behaviour by people, so that when people actually engage in threatening behaviour or violent behaviour or assault or whatever it might be, addressing that, moving towards addressing other behaviour that may or may not actually have those characteristics, such as drinking. Some people will drink and then go and engage in violent behaviour. Some people will drink and mind their own business and not affect anybody. What we've done, though, is we've brought in laws to make the drinking illegal, and I think what we've discovered is that we put a law on the books. That doesn't necessarily mean that the thing has stopped happening, and anyone can walk down any of our high streets and see people drinking, because that is generally a result of people's complex problems, which could include trauma, drug and alcohol addiction, and so on. It turns out they don't actually care much about the fact that there's a local law that says they can't do that thing. They don't manage risk in the same way that we manage risk and make those decisions in the same way. We've now moved to a proposal which I will be voting against, which is to move to criminalise not so much behaviour but simply presence. That, if someone is around that we think might be shifty or that we don't like the look of, that we'd move them on. I feel that is. I already felt that earlier laws were an overreach. This, I think, is a gross overreach, and not only will it not work in terms of trying to make the area safer, in the same way that banning drinking didn't really do anything either, but it will actually harm people. When you push people away from highly visible high streets and tell them that they have to go somewhere else, generally they go to less visible areas where they can't be kept safe, where they may be harmed and unable to seek help. That's what we see. The evidence is actually really clear in terms of move-on laws, is that generally the health and safety of people who are affected by the move-on laws, there's a huge detriment to that because they're told to go somewhere else where they're less safe. Part of the reason why people congregate in high streets is because it's highly visible, and they can go and get help. They can go to a pharmacy and get things. They can get the things they need. And sometimes they also engage in unacceptable behaviour. And I've seen that. We've all seen that. And I know that, occasionally there'll be people who will accuse me of, being in a bubble and not seeing this sort of stuff. Well, one, I live in Balaclava and I spend most of my time on Carlisle Street. I do see this. And I'm quite often on Fitzroy Street. David Blakely can attest to that. I'm running into him all the time when I'm down there. So it's definitely something that we see. I think there's a bit of a difference of opinion in terms of how best we can actually achieve behaviour change. But I will say that when we're talking about some of the people that we're talking about who have the most complex and serious problems, who have drug and alcohol addiction, mental health issues, trauma, homelessness, which could be long-term homelessness, it could be, sort of in and out of accommodation and so on, potential legal issues going through the justice system. That's 5 coexisting sort of conditions. To expect someone like that to change their behaviour in a way that would make us more comfortable by changing a law, which we think would make sense to us, there's no evidence to support that has ever worked. Generally, it's getting these people the help they need, multidisciplinary support that will actually, get them off the street, get them into supported housing, and make a difference. These methods that council tries to use are based on evidence. There's experts that are informing this this approach, and believe it or not, the police, as much as they are not particularly well trained to deal with people who have severe mental health issues or drug and alcohol issues, they do have some level of experience with, dealing with these people regularly, and they themselves agree with a lot of what the experts are saying in terms of what actually works and what doesn't work. Giving someone a fine doesn't work. The people will continue to engage in behaviours such as drinking or congregating with people that, perhaps it isn't so good for them to congregate with, and so on, based on all of those other things that are motivating them that are not caring about local laws. I'm concerned that when we and I'm glad that that the camping element was taken out, because I think what I've heard is this attempt to sort of put disadvantaged people into two boxes. There's sort of the genuinely homeless and sort of the fake homeless, people who supposedly have housing but are still camping out or are still not spending time in that housing. Again, while it may seem a rational choice to us that if we have housing we would go and spend time in that housing, the mere fact that people aren't making that choice shows you that there's something wrong here. They're not making the same choices that we would make. Therefore, your approach actually needs to be different. And simply telling them no and giving them fines and infringements is not actually going to be an approach that works. So I really want us to focus on what is actually going to work, what is actually going to take care of disadvantaged people, even the ones that, and I've had a dude, wander down the street just, swearing his head off at me and not leaving me alone. I've had people throw punches at me. I've had all of these sorts of things. It's awful. It's terrible, and it's not something that any of us should have to put up with. But simply giving these people infringements is not going to solve that problem. There are peer-reviewed expert processes that we can put into place, and a lot of these things need support from other levels of government. We can't do it all, but I really want us to look at how we can actually address, yes, dangerous behaviour, which the police can be a part of that solution and should be a part of that solution, but also what actually works in terms of getting people off the street, getting them from engaging in dangerous and unhealthy behaviours into safe and healthy behaviours, and making decisions that aren't driven by trauma, mental health issues and addiction, and instead of making decisions that are driven, much like us, by self-preservation and trying to take care of our community. So that's why I'll be voting against this alternative recommendation, and I will foreshadow that should this fail, I will be putting the original officer's recommendation for the local law for us to put out there.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak to this? Councillor Crawford.
I'm probably reiterating a lot of what people have said. Thank you for everyone coming and sharing your concerns. We've been hearing these concerns for 7 years since I've been on council, and I used to work on Fitzroy Street for 14 years, so it's not things that are new to me. And I sympathise, I empathise. But I guess, like some of my fellow colleagues, I want to do things that work, that actually change the game. I mean, how did we get here? I remember watching the decline of Ackland and Fitzroy Street, and it did start with high rents going up and shops moving, because we do know having lots of foot traffic and people around, like we had at St Kilda Festival, is one of the best ways to keep those things away. We had the closure. I mean, these are long-term decisions that are coming home to roost, unfortunately. We closed mental health facilities and underinvested in mental health for a very long time in this state. And then we wonder how we got here. And I know we're trying to invest more now, but it takes time to get to a state where people are actually looked after properly. And on all levels of government and all stripes of government, have underinvested in housing at all levels and supported housing. So how did we get here? That's how we got here. And it's happening around the world. It's not just here. And they're complex and they're difficult issues. But I guess the thing is, and lots of you acknowledged it tonight, that council is doing so much. We are doing more than our bit, whatever we can. We have spent more money and time on Fitzroy Street and Ackland Street in the last 7 years than any other section of the municipality, like really trying to solve these problems, whether it's pop-ups, beautification, removal of seats, placemaking, Pride Centre, reducing the parking, you name it, we've done it for those streets. We really are trying to help, because we know how difficult the problem is. And yet we aren't probably in some ways in a better position. I mean, we have found more homes for people since the pandemic, where people, actually more or less people camping there because they've been into homes. We're putting money into Wellington Street that actually will hopefully give that supported housing so that people remain off the streets and in care. But unfortunately, 99% of what we heard tonight is a police matter. It's not a council matter. All of the things that people are making people feel unsafe, they're police matters. So I'm not supportive of either the move on or the changing the nuisance, because I think we're giving false hope. I think the idea that we change that law and it will actually change things on the ground, other than addressing the complexity like housing, support, mental health, police, all of those things, I think I don't want to pretend to the community that that's going to do anything. So until we, I don't want to set expectations that this will change anything. I don't want to put our officers in a position where they're feeling pressure from their community to do things that are dangerous, that will be counterintuitive to actually building relationships and possibly getting some of those people that that are causing concern into that supported and mental health help. We have Port Phillip Zero, which has won awards and is noted across the country as that multidisciplinary, where we actually go out and we try and engage and find people into support. Those are the things that slowly, and I know they're slowly, change the game. I mean, the reality check is move on. Where do we move them to? In front of my house, your house, the next business on, only for them to return an hour later? Like, that's the reality we're dealing with. Also, we can't our officers, they can ask politely, but they can't move them on. That's a police matter. And technically they're allowed to be in public if they're not engaging in criminal behaviour. So I think that's the problem, is these laws are not realistic in what they can deliver. If we ask someone if they're homeless, where does that lead you? I remember when they used to, a lot of people used to sit at the ending, is it Cleves Garden of Fitzroy Street, and no one wanted them there. And then they used to sit in front of 7-Eleven and no one wanted them there. And sometimes they were engaging in antisocial behaviour, but not always. And then they're at the top of Grey Street, and now they're at the corner where the little stools are. Sometimes they want their own sense of community, their own different version to our sense of community. They want to feel like they belong and they have a place to hang out. The behaviours that are antisocial, that is problematic. But it's complex, and it's, why do they sleep there with other people they know, even if they've got a house? Well, maybe it's because it's where they feel safe. We don't actually know, and it's complex and it takes time. So I don't know. The things that I would suggest is we've got a lot of federal state members of all political parties in both the state and federal, senators and MPs. We should be urging them at all levels of government that are beyond the reach of council to spend more on the supported housing, to look at how there are other more innovative ways for mental health to be rolled out in this community, those kind of services that actually change the game, and to talk to them about policing numbers or any of those other things, and that changing the model of how we approach this as a society societal problem beyond the borders of the city of Port Phillip. Many other municipalities are having the same issue. Ask them to move to this multidisciplinary model that has been proved effective, to fund that at a much greater degree. Let's look at the innovative solutions. Unfortunately, changing this local law is not one of those that will change the game. But you do have federal and state members who have also influence and more money and more opportunity to influence the things that you're talking about. So I would urge you to contact them all and ask them to advocate, particularly around that supported housing and better services. So that's kind of where I'm at. I won't be supporting it. As I say, I want better outcomes for our residents and community. I just want solutions that work. And unfortunately, I don't think these local laws will deliver what you're actually asking us, for the safety that you want.
Thank you. We'll go online to Councillor Nyagui.
Thank you, Mayor. I too have kind of grappled with these issues tonight. I won't sort of touch as much on the other broader local law, but we'll sort of focus on these two particular motions that are before us around behaviour on council land and move-on powers. I kind of, at the moment, it's actually been very front of my mind, not because I've been down Fitzroy Street lately, but because I've been travelling in the United States and Canada, and throughout my travels I've been kind of shocked by the really blatant and extreme homelessness on this side of the world. This is certainly an issue that affects people everywhere, and it's gotten a lot worse in the last 100 years, and I think we need to ask ourselves what kind of a society is producing this and how we can change it at a macro level. But that doesn't lessen, of course, what's happening on Fitzroy Street, what's happening around our municipality. And look, I get it. I'm a tall young man, and I walk down Fitzroy Street and have found too many times that I found myself feeling really unsafe. And I'm lucky I've never experienced any violence personally, but I know plenty of people who have. And that stuff is really difficult. But when I look at these sort of proposals, I don't see solutions. I see issues that should be better directed toward the police. We talk about drug taking, we talk about violence. These things are never going to be issues that get resolved by council officers. And actually, when we talk about drinking, that's already something that we have, as a council, outlawed. And clearly, if we've tried it once and it hasn't worked, I don't see how broadening the definition of what we prohibit is going to solve these problems. I've really grappled with the issue in regard to broaden the nuisance definition, and a lot of my colleagues can attest. I sort of chewed their up a bit about it today and in the past, but ultimately I don't think this is enforceable, and I don't think this is the best use of our council officers' time. I think it's going to potentially lead to perverse and negative outcomes. And I think at worst case, we're going to be putting our council officers in a place that's ultimately not safe, and it's a place that really does need to be undertaken by the police. So I think ultimately, beyond dealing with the sort of pointy end of criminality, which ultimately is the responsibility of the police, I think our role here is around those wraparound mental health services, around providing housing. Now, these are not solely council responsibilities, but there's a role for us in this area, and it's a role that I think I'm proud to see us playing with things like the Wellington Street project. I think that's the kind of response ultimately that will change the game in this space. I don't think trying to have rules around moving on people or broadening definitions of nuisance will be beneficial. I will say that I do find the issues around the kind of existing definition challenging, but I'm not sort of a huge fan of quiet enjoyment as a definition. But I think ultimately we need to err on the side of solutions that can actually resolve things. So I'm very keen for us to continue this conversation, continue to support projects like Wellington Street, and to continue to have a conversation with the community. I think there are more solutions out there. We can keep working on this. But I think the two that are before us tonight are not the solutions we're hoping for. I don't think they're enforceable, and I don't think they're going to deliver the results that we want. I know that's frustrating, but unfortunately that's, I think, where we're at.
Thank you. Councillor Pearl.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if I fully agree with Councillor Nwagi's version of history there. If we were talking about 100 years ago, I think people were living in much harder circumstances, and hopefully history doesn't repeat itself where we were not many years away from 30+% unemployment. So not sure the facts are straight on that one. Let's go through this in some detail and take a high-level view of what the role of council is and obviously what the role of state government is, and particularly the police force. So council is being asked by our community, and rightly so, to do more and more and more, and the state government is asking us to do more and more and more with less and less and less. And by passing 3.1 and 3.2, and I think Councillor Clark and Councillor Sirikoff are very sincere in the amendment that they've put forward here today, or tonight rather, in their intent. But the reality will be that we'll pass these here this evening. The community will rightly expect us to enforce these. And my view is it's not our place to do that at all. This is the place of the state government. This is the place of the police force to do this. Particularly in relation to move-on laws, etc. There's not the place of council officers to do that. It is the place of the police. And bits of paper in a council level won't solve this issue. And we've seen that with other issues in our community that the state government almost refuses to act on in a holistic way to get some results. The next example of that is obviously hooning, when at a time where our community was desperately asking for action on hooning, the state government went and put a committee together, which I'm sure sends out very informative minutes to whoever the members are, whilst council spent tens of thousands of dollars on ratepayer money buying equipment that the police force desperately needed to try and solve the hooning issue. If we get into the territory of amending local laws to move people on, that is a slippery slope in that I just don't think council has the ability or the resources to implement these laws correctly, and it increases expectation in the community, which is one part of it, but it also then allows the state government to vacate the field and say, well, you've got a local law to move people on, effectively, indirectly potentially, but very firmly saying that law and order on your streets is now much more your responsibility potentially than the police, and that sends a very strange and mixed message. We do not control the police force. That's not our role as local government. That is clearly the role of state government. I'm concerned particularly with 3.2 that it's too broad, and I don't support that. 3.1, I'm likely to support on the basis of it going out for consultation, but if it did come back, I'll be unlikely, I think, to support it, but it isn't vastly different from what the existing local law is, but I think it's worth our while having the community to have their say on what they think of 3.1, but I think 3.2 for me goes too far, and I'll probably be unlikely to support 3.2 potentially in the future in any case. In summary, councillors, we already have these laws in our community. We have laws for hooning. It's against the law to do misconduct like burn tyres out and engage in traffic behaviour which is illegal. You're not allowed to do that. We have EPA laws and noise laws around hooning that don't get enforced. You're not allowed to abuse people and assault people on the street. That is already against the law. We don't need more laws. We need more resources and support from the state government to solve what are, yes, complex issues, but they're eminently solvable if there's a will and there's a way. And we have some local members that are very good at blaming council because we sit here and we're the only level of government that sits here and listens to our community. And we'll be blamed by many tonight, and many will point the finger at me and say you're not acting well enough. But it's fairly clear that our group of councillors are the only people that are really listening to our community, because if our state and federal members of parliament were listening to the community, they'll be doing a hell of a lot more to help our high streets along Fitzroy Street and Ackland Street, and helping our local residents live safely with the antisocial effects of things like hooning and violence on our street. The City of Port Phillip listens and we act where we possibly can, but we can't get in the business of overreaching into areas that aren't in our jurisdiction, and we need to hold the state government accountable for their lack of action when they should be protecting our local community.
Thank you, Councillor Pearl. I'll speak to the item and then we'll go to the vote. Thank you to our local laws team. We really appreciate all you do, and we need you out there. Thank you to everyone coming today. There's some experiences here that are hard to share, and we appreciate that you've shared them because they are important that we know and acknowledge what is happening out there. We can't let these local laws sunset or we wouldn't have laws. So the process that we need to move forward on, I'm happy to support where we get to tonight, that it's going to go out to community consultation, and we really want everyone to show up and hear it and hear both sides and all the views. That's very important. But these laws won't make everything perfect. I acknowledge that. And there's really a small percentage of the population that's making a big problem for all the rest. And that's the hard part, to nail down and fix those. And I think it is a lot about behavior as well. But we also need that enforcement. The joint local laws patrols would be the most helpful thing I find right now. And there was a statement saying, well, don't do no change. There's plenty of items here that are outside of even what we spend most time talking about tonight that are great. So I'm appreciative of the council drains, the shopping trolleys. There's the unsightly land part, the dog walking. We hear things about that in our community too. That we're solving a lot of issues in the local laws. You're not just talking about Fitzroy Street and Ackland Street tonight and parts of South Melbourne, places raised tonight. I think the furniture one is going to make a big difference, especially with the perception of camping and campsites, be able to move that furniture and not let it sit there. I think that's going to be really an important one that we're going to see a difference on. But again, it's back to community engagement after this and hearing your feedback to make sure that we're getting it right, because we need to get it right, but balancing the expectations. A lot of people have spoken to that tonight about really what are our powers and what are not our powers, and then I won't go more into that. Now, I will be voting yes for the nuisance rule. I think it's clearer, and there's a legal definition of nuisance, whereas quiet engagement seems a little bit more vague. People have very different views about what's disturbing them. I will be voting no on the move-on laws, although this seems like it would solve so many problems. It is a duplication of the power that the police already have, and we've had the legal advice saying that it's not going to stack up very well. I'll speak to the Airbnb, the short term. I thought someone might have foreshadowed upcoming work on this, but they might have forgotten to mention that. And I think that there's a separate process that might be coming up soon about looking at this a little bit deeper. What Mornington's doing, what Warrnambool and all these other ones are doing is a little bit different to what we have. For example, Mornington has more standalone houses. We have a lot more apartments, and it's what the state government's doing in that space is working towards the owners' corporations dealing with it. It's probably not where it needs to be. We need the state to do more. So hopefully that future process that's coming soon, ideally, will help address that. So tonight, that isn't part of the consideration. The next one that's really important for me to talk about is the hooning. I know, especially up in Port Melbourne, there's a strong representation from our local community asking for a hooning law, some way, something that can help. But the only one that's been tabled so far is one that's been used elsewhere, and which has been effective in industrial locations. And although we have parts of industrial area in Port Melbourne, that's not the predominant area we're seeing the hooning happening or where the call to action is. There's a little bit out there, and the police are helping, but it's more around the station pier. And it becomes a little bit more complicated in an urban environment where who's actually there for something else and stumbled upon it. It's not, in my opinion, the right law for us. However, I am very thankful that Councillor Clark has brought into this in item 3.4, I think it is now. Is that 3.5? 3.4. That in this community consultation process we're going to start in the next month, that people do bring up about their Hoon event experience, what they think would be the right wording around it, because ultimately we need to advocate to the state government as well on this to ensure that this is actioned and that it's not affecting our community as much. So this is the opportunity that we're adding in here, that people can engage in that process and that we can use that to advocate on the topic. Then last, I did raise earlier a question about the vaping, and although I'm sure I have the opportunity to add an amendment, I'm not going to tonight because it's an emerging space. I think generally the smoking tobacco products and stuff covers it, but we haven't talked about it. There may be a future opportunity, as a lot of these things may evolve, even though it's every 10 years, things happen in between. And again, we've already spoken today about if we didn't get it right this time and our community tells us, we may then go through a separate process later on. So again, thank you to our local laws team. I really think you guys are great and appreciate what you do. And hopefully this whole process, that we're getting a joint effort to make our streets better, safer, and the place we all want to be. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the voting. Oh, sorry, Councillor Clark. Oh, sorry. You have the, would you like to close?
Thank you. I'd just like to also thank the speakers and the people that have put in the effort to come and talk to us about it. And as the other councillors have said, now we need to engage with the community further to get more feedback and across the spectrum, I guess. In terms of councillors, I think the discussion's been interesting, and thank you everyone for your input and views. I personally would like to see vaping looked at and addressed. I know from the interaction with my nephews and nieces, it's a massive problem. It's an epidemic, I would go so far as to say. So yeah, I'd like to see if we can look at that. So I appreciate that not everything's going to be supported tonight, and as a result of that, I'd like to foreshadow that if the one or two of the amendments fail, then I'd like to put forward the other motion regarding consultation. Not sure what number we're calling that, Xavier. I've run out of numbers, but anyway, I think everyone knows what I mean. So thank you.
All right, I also want to say thank you to the councillors. That was a really nice debate. I think everyone was respectful in that, so I appreciate that. Did you have a question?
I've got a clarifying question.
Yes?
How do you amend it if we're voting on it in full now? I don't understand that part.
No, fair enough. I think there's a question here that we do need to ask.
That's what I was advised, that the last bit is separate. So if that's not correct.
Can I clarify? So I think the foreshadow that Councillor Clark is saying could also... how's that going to work? Could it be...
I thought.
Okay, how about this? I think that what you should maybe consider in your foreshadowing is we're going to vote for 3.1. You'll see how that goes. Then we're going to vote for 3.2. We'll see how that goes. If there's a point then that you want to adopt, that would be then an amendment to then come in before we do that third vote for 3.3 to 3.5. No, but then we go through the amendment process.
Point of order. We've already refused to take that out too. I don't think we can add it in. I know we talked about a separate paper, but if we've actually refused that particular section to go out, how can we then vote on it again?
I'll clarify that the foreshadowed item, stop me if I'm doing anything wrong, would be, as part of the community consultation process, provide information to the community and seek feedback on council's consideration of, and then...
I know that's a discussion. I'd like to have further discussion. It's actually, we're going out when we've actually voted it down to not go out on it. I know the intent behind it, but actually, the more I think about it, we've actually said, no, we're not going to go out to the community. They can still respond to it. I don't want it...
Point of order.
Under what section?
To the point of order. I think let's let the Mayor deal with your point of order and come back.
I think we need a couple-minute break, plus you've all been sitting there. Thank you. Let's come back in like 5 minutes. All right. Thank you again for your patience. This is a complicated one and we want to get it right. All right. So I believe what we're at, to give you a summary and some forward thinking, is we will still now go to the vote. Everyone's had the opportunity to speak. We're going to go to 3.1, vote on that. We'll go to 3.2, vote on that. Then Part B is actually going to be 3.3 we'll vote on, 3.5 we'll vote on, and 3.6 we'll vote on. Okay? Don't I do that during 3.2? But do I do that now or later? It may be more clear if I say now that should 3.2 fail, I will foreshadow an amendment that later on. That, do I have to say what the amendment is? Okay, signing of the paper. Just be very clear on a complicated one. I would foreshadow an amendment to say, add a new item at 3.5, move down. It would be, as part of a community consultation process, provide information to the community and seeks feedback on council's consideration of a move-on clause. Move-on clause. Okay. Should we have to go to the amendment, we will then have the opportunity to debate. Everyone have the opportunity to speak to that item, only to the item, the amendment, and we would vote on that. Okay. Now, Councillor Crawford, are you satisfied with the point of order? Do you want to go through that process?
The question was the point that Councillor Bond raised. Can anyone bring an amendment when the end of the debate has finished? Yeah, that's...
Because we haven't voted.
Yeah, you can. Even though everyone's spoken, can we bring an amendment? Okay.
Okay. And the only people who can't bring amendments are the mover and the seconder. All right, let's do this. We're going to vote now. Everyone online good? We're good? Okay. We're going to vote on 3.1, which is, I really don't want to have to read that out, do I? But approves behaviour on council land is the general topic. All those in favour? All 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? 4. All right, so that's carried. Does anybody want to call division? You have the opportunity to. Nope.
Division.
Okay, sorry. That's okay, so I can't tell. Okay, we're going division. All those in favour, put your hands up. You got Councillor Bond, Councillor Sirikoff, Councillor Consolo, Councillor Clark, and Councillor Pearl. All those against? Councillor Martin, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Baxter, and Councillor Nyagwi. Thank you. That's item 3.1. Now we're voting on item 3.2, which is the move-on clause. Okay, all those in favour? That's 2. All those against? That's lost.
Can I get a division on that, please?
All right, let's get a division on that. All in favour? Councillor Sirikoff, Councillor Clark. All those against? Councillor Martin, Councillor Bond, Councillor Consolo, Councillor Baxter, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Nyagwi, and Councillor Pearl. Governance, are you good? Yeah, okay, thanks. Pardon? Oh, that's lost. Now, I already, again, after the division, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to 3.3. We'll vote that, then we'll do 3.4, and then I've already foreshadowed an amendment. So item 3.3 is approves the release of the proposed proposed community amendment local laws 2023 with any adopted changes as resolved in Part A and the associated community impact statement for community consultation. So we voted up the nuisance or behaviour on council land, but not the move-on laws. So councillors, all those in favour, raise your hand. That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Okay, 3.4 we'll vote for as part of the community consultation process, provides information to the community and seeks feedback on council's consideration of a Hoon event clause. So again, that's not the Hoon law that was in the papers. It's a general statement. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. All right. I'd like to move an amendment My amendment would be the new 3.5. As part of community consultation process, provides information to the community and seeks feedback on council's consideration of a move-on clause. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bond, thank you. So I'll speak to it. You have the opportunity to speak to it. Everybody has the opportunity to speak to this one, for or against, but do it quick because we're all tired. So I think in support of the community and the councillors who were in favour of this one, I think that we still have the opportunity to discuss this. It is not considered part of the local law that we've already voted up, but just to get the feedback and understanding, should we enter into a future process or anything like that, that it's that fair engagement that the community can have with us. Councillor Bond. Any other councillors want to speak to this? Councillor Crawford?
I won't be supporting this because we actually just voted down the... when we make a decision, we're going out to consult on the decision, and it was resounding 2 to 7. The community has can feedback on anything, saying there's something missing. They get the same consultation opportunity. It just means that this is the set of things that council is looking to turn our local laws in, which is what we do every time we go out to consultation. We don't go, but we'll also consult on that even though it got voted down. So in terms of process, I think it's a terrible thing. The move-on clause, if you want to tell us about it, you can still do that if we go out with the local laws consultation as it is, as we do in every single and have for 7 years on consultation.
Thank you. I'll go online to Councillor Pearl.
Thanks very much, Madam Mayor. Councillors, vote this down. As Councillor Crawford just said, we've already essentially debated this issue in many respects. Let's move on from the move-on law, but we don't need to go out and consult and raise the expectations of our community other than to advocate for the state government to do their job, which is to increase police resources in our key crime hotspots, and for the state government to resource our local police correctly to solve many of the issues that we have on our streets. Let's focus on the items that are within our control and within our jurisdiction, and not start getting into the jurisdiction of the state and federal government where they should be doing their jobs. Councillors, vote against this amendment, please.
Thank you. Online again to Councillor Niagui.
Yeah, to echo Councillors Crawford and Pearl, this is an outrageous waste of time, and I think given that those who spoke against spoke about the fact that this is not going to work, I think it's kind of bizarre that we would turn around and go to the community on something that we know in our hearts is not going to work and is probably not actually implementable. Vote against this.
Thank you. Any other councillors? Councillor Martin?
I didn't support the nuisance amendment, although I must admit I was wavering. However, there's no way I'd want to take that back to the community as a separate item. Council's made a decision. I'm happy to wear that decision. Same thing stands here. We've made a decision. I'm happy to wear it. And on this particular issue, I actually have strong moral objections as to whether we should do it. And if people out there want to bring up comments, they're all within their rights. But I don't believe we as council should entertain a formal consultation on something that we've made a decision on.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. We'll put that to a vote. This is the item to community consultation process for the move-on clause. All those in favour? All those against? That's lost. All right, so the last item is 3.5 now. We'll go back. Thanks, governance. It's delegates authority to the CEO to reflect any changes made by council at tonight's meeting, to make minor typographical corrections or changes or formatting to the proposed local law, and consultation information prior to community consultation. It's up there. All right, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimous. Thanks. Thank you. That was contentious, obviously. Now, we've had a lot of breaks, so we're going to keep rolling through. Thank you for waiting around for items that you're here for. We're now on to 10.2, sports grounds conditions, response to the notice of motion. Thank you. I'll wait for the gallery to clear. Thank you. All right, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers on this item? I'm sure we'll move at a faster pace now because it's getting late. All right, do I have a mover for the, Councillor Martin and Councillor Crawford a second? Let me write that down. I've lost my pen. Okay. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you to the officers for preparing the detailed report. Thank you for all the work that officers have done behind the scenes. There's been some alterations in our sport and rec people. We now have a wonderful new turf consultant. There's far more engagement with clubs. I see great things happening. So thank you very much to the council officers for preparing the report, and I hope that we endorse it as we go into bigger and better things in sport and rec.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. No? Anybody else want to speak to it? Councillor Bond.
I think this was a result of a notice of motion I put up for us to look at the condition of our numerous sporting grounds across the municipality as a result of feedback we've all received as councillors from the community as to the current state. I think we'd all agree there is a bit of work for us to do in order to get our grounds up to a acceptable and safe condition for the sporting clubs who use these grounds. Apparently there are around 20,000 members of the various sporting clubs in the city of Port Phillip, so they are a very large group in our community, and they've been quite vocal and consistent in their feedback to us that we need to do better with our sporting fields. So hopefully we will look at a number of steps to improve the quality of the grounds and to ensure that our grounds are fit for purpose for the teams, the many teams who currently play on them. It is a very difficult job doing this because these grounds do serve a number of other uses outside of sporting fields from time to time. So it is a very difficult balancing act, but it's up to us to get it right and provide a safe playing field for the many sporting clubs who play on these fields. And at the moment, we're probably not doing that. We're certainly the community would like us to do a bit better in this area. So I think it's upon us to look at all elements of our sporting ground management and ensure we improve in these areas and provide satisfactory playing fields to these sporting groups.
Thank you. If there's no one else, I'll speak to it. I missed my opportunity. I forgot I had a question about the foxes that were brought up today and evidence about that. So I'll ask that offline a bit more to understand if we're seeing a problem with foxes digging and etc. But tonight we had a few speakers to more specifically around Lagoon Reserve, and that's a site up in Port Melbourne that we have future works to, and it's been a sporting ground, but it hasn't been used because the surface is so poor right now. And I think a lot of people thought when they read this it was very much targeting them, the dog damage in that one. And it's kind of a different scenario in that one because we have future works and there's more to be done there. But I find it really enlightening when we've had the new turf expert on council give us a little bit more about what we can do a little bit different and about our sandy soil and the thatch and all the terms I'm not going to remember. But there's still a lot that we have to do in order to increase the integrity of the surface. And if that surface can be maintained, we have less issues with the dogs getting the scent of the soil and wanting to dig and all these things. So I think it's two-way that we need to make sure that our turf management is up to scratch too. But we also need that people who do have animals on it need to ensure that just one dog digging is a problem. Because I think I've said this before, that one person thinks, this is just my dog digging one hole, it's not a big deal. But that was one person. There's 8,500 dogs that are registered. So if everyone has that mindset, we start having issues. So it's there's a few people ruining it for others, but also we're going to work on our turf management. So I wanted to touch base that the dog community tonight to make sure that you know that you're not being targeted. There's more that we can do in the turf side as well. And I look forward to seeing the improvements that we are expecting. Thank you. Okay, so there's been no one speaking against it, so there's no need to close. Let's go ahead and take that one to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, the next item is 13.1, South Melbourne Town Hall, proposed lease to ANAM submissions. Do we have any questions of officers on this one? No. Councillor Sirikoff? Are your microphone on?
Thank you. Just reading the responses from participants into the survey, it seemed to be some residents who were not happy with the South Melbourne Town Hall being leased out, and I think it was really all about if the community can still have access to the building. So can council officers please confirm that what access community will still have?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question. There were about 9% of respondents who indicated that they were against the idea of leasing the Town Hall under this proposal. Some of the themes raised were a concern about the lease term being excessively long, potential limitations, as you mentioned, limitations to community access. Officers intend to consider all of the submissions received and make responses, give consideration to all the themes raised, all the issues raised, and respond to them more fully in our next report to Council, which is anticipated on the 15th of this month. In the meantime, though, in direct response to your question, Councillor, there's several ways that this lease, or the terms of this lease, promote community access. One of them is to actively encourage the hiring of the building at discounted rates. There is a space allocated for use by Council as an assist count or other purposes that Council may feel appropriate. There are many more spaces under this lease. It's anticipated that many more spaces within the building will be available for community hire. And through the upgrades proposed to the building, they're anticipated to increase the amenity of the building, increase its attractiveness for use by the public, for use for events.
Thank you. I have a question. Tonight, when Nick Bailey spoke to it, I think he said that they will not be doing the venue hire part of it. Is Council going to do the venue hire?
I didn't actually hear Nick Bailey's comments tonight, but I will review them on the video. It's anticipated that the hiring of the building, at the moment under the existing arrangements, ANAM hires the building. It's not generally Port Phillip, City of Port Phillip that hires it out. We do use it for council events like citizenship ceremonies, like council meetings, and it's not proposed that change. So under the lease terms, the City of Port Phillip would continue to use, the building would be available for those sort of uses. Under the lease terms, it's contemplated that hiring would be by ANAM, and there's incentives in the lease for them to do that in a way, to fit out the building in a way and to hire it in a way that increases the visitation very significantly.
Okay, I might have misunderstood it, sorry.
Through you, Mayor, we will clarify that. I would think, based on previous discussions and the lease negotiations so far, that ANAM wouldn't control the hiring of the venue, and in particular, for a range of different reasons, operationally it makes sense for them, but we have agreed there's incentives there to make sure it's going towards community groups, and they've also indicated there'd be discounted rates for community groups to utilise the facility as well.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll need a mover for this one. Councillor Martin, a seconder. Councillor Bond. All right. Councillor Martin, would you like to speak to it?
Very briefly, just like to thank everyone who made submissions. I tried to read all of them, but there was so much, but I think I've got a pretty good understanding. Great to see so many people in support of the proposal. Interesting that some of the concerns raised looked like they'd been a result of a misunderstanding of the documentation, but there were some concerns raised that were very valid. So I look forward to council officers doing a full evaluation of all of the responses from the community and coming back to us with a recommendation.
Councillor Bond? Anybody else? I'll just say quickly, we're not being dismissive of all the submissions. I think there were quite a few, and some stuck out to me that, you know, the importance of the assist desk continues to come through. Someone even suggested that they really want to make sure that the clock tower still chimes every hour because it's an important, valuable point to them living in South Melbourne, and because that could be disruptive to music performance, perhaps that would happen, but I think the intent would be to keep that historic aspect to it. So those comments were all read and appreciated, and so we thank the community for their high engagement on this. All right, if no one else is going to speak to it, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Now, I had a request earlier to move the next two on block. We didn't have any speakers to them, so we can do that. So that'll be putting 13.2 and 13.3 together. Audit and Risk Committee Biannual Report as of 31st December 2022, and the status of council decisions and questions taken on notice recorded by council 1 October to 31st December 2022. So this is on block, so we're not speaking to it. Oh, sorry. Councillor Pearl, are you moving or you got a question?
Yeah, happy to move.
Oh, yep, sure. I like the speed, but I assume there's no questions. So Pearl has moved. Who's seconding this? Sirikoff? All right, Councillor. I guess we don't speak to it, right? You can speak to it if you want to. Councillor Pearl?
No, thank you.
Councillor Sirikoff? Councillor Martin? Oh, sorry.
Just very briefly, I'd like to thank the Audit and Risk Committee members, Brian Denson, Helen Lanyon and Kylie Mayer for their rigorous input into the meetings that we have, and I'd also like to thank the previous Mayor Marcus Pearl and the current for all the work that he put in for the past year, and welcome aboard the current Mayor Heather Consolo for the Audit and Risk Committee.
And I'd like to thank Councillor Sirikoff for all of her work.
Oh, yes. Councillor Martin, was there something else there? Or just that? Okay, great point. And Councillor Baxter?
Yeah, no, really, so I'm going to be very brief, though. But with regards to the status of council decisions and questions taken on notice, I just wanted to note that in a forum of various different councillors from across the state where people get advice and ask questions and stuff, someone asked, you know, I keep having this issue where decisions that we make or petitions that we receive or something, we lose track of them, and you know, we don't know what actually happened with them. And I was able to proudly show our minutes of one of our meetings that show that we actually track all of those decisions and show exactly what happened to them. And they said that they'd never seen that before, and that, you know, must be best practice.
Good feedback, and thank you for the efforts. All right, let's go ahead and put that to the vote for both items. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. All right, that's the end of the reports. Councillors, next item is notice of motions. We have no notice of motions tonight. Next item is reports by councillor delegates. Councillors, are there any reports by councillor delegates? All right, we're going to move on tonight because we do have an urgent item of business. Don't get up yet, Teresa. But I just read this part. I know, but I still have to go through the words there. Ready? CEO, you got something to say. So I say, are there any urgent items of business? Here, have mine. You just read that part of it.
Through you, Mayor, we have one item of urgent business on tonight's agenda, being the West Beach Boardwalk upgrade, a very important project. This item will be considered as confidential information in accordance with Section 3 of the Local Government Act as it relates to council business information, being information that would prejudice council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released, and will therefore be considered in the confidential section of the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any other further items of urgent business? No? All right, then we'll move on to confidential matters. Councillors, we have 3 confidential reports listed on the agenda being...
Point of order, Mayor. Do we need to vote up the item of urgent business?
Oh. Okay, we will vote it up. So we won't take questions at this point other than procedural. All right, Bond and Martin. Thank you. Appreciate the group effort here tonight.
Sorry, that is when we get to the confidential item, accepted as...
Oh, okay.
When we get to that item within confidential business, there's a vote on whether it's accepted as urgent business.
Okay, so to put it through the microphone, we're actually going to not vote on that now. We vote on it being an urgent item of business during the confidential section. So we're going into confidential matters. We have 3 items tonight. That's Wellington Street Common Ground project funding options. That's 17.1. 7.2 is M9 waste and recycling business case. 17.3 is West Beach Boardwalk upgrade. Yes, Councillor Clark?
Would it be possible to do the...
Yeah, I'll change the order for you.
Thank you.
We'll do that within the meeting. Okay, I now call on a councillor to move that the meeting be closed to members of the public, considering the confidential items. Oh, Councillor Clark looks super excited. Seconder? No one wants a second. Just kidding. Sierra-Goff. Councillor Sierra-Goff. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, we will now conclude the public part of this meeting. I advise members of the public that there are no further open items to be discussed. This will be the conclusion of the public meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Fatula.